Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. I failed to mention they are under the direction of Brett Pekuritz, the band director at Orange Park High School, and he clearly does a phenomenal job. Thank you so much for showcasing tonight. Are you guys ready for some Friday Night Lights? I know I'll be at that Raider game tomorrow night. All right, at this time we will have Pastor Lucas Johnson, the campus pastor from Christ Church, lead us in a word of prayer before we open our meeting.
Good evening, everybody. Would you please stand in prayer with me? Our Heavenly Father, God, your name is holy, and your love is great. Your nature is good. And Father, we welcome you into this place tonight. God, we need all of it right here and right now. And so, Father, we know that as you fill this place, God, we know that you have called us all here, that you've ordained this moment, God, for this time and space. And God, it is for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to steward the good and precious gifts that you've given us in our children. So God, I pray that we do one thing, that as we come before you tonight and we come before one another, God, that we lay something at your feet. God, that at the altar we lay down any agenda. God, that we lay down any ego, any personal preference. God, any pride. And God, that we come before you not with a posture of that, but God, we come before you with a posture of humility. And Father, we know that all this is going to be based upon a mutual trust, relational equity. And God, we know that none of that is going to be built upon the words that we feel like we need to say, but it's going to be built upon our willingness to listen. So God, I pray that we do that. And God, I pray again that we are able to just steward the incredible gifts that you've given us in these kids. God, that spirits will not be stifled, but encouraged and built. And God, that the knowledge that is poured into these children is not just something that we just do and check a box, but God, we are all here because we love and care for the lives and the gifts that they are. So God, for every single person in this room, God, right now, I pray for blessing and favor and anointing. And God, most of all, I pray for a double portion of wisdom and discernment. God, that we are just not going to guide our children for today, but we can go ahead and establish a general and generational blessing for tomorrow. God, that we can broaden our shoulders for that. So the people that comes behind us, our kids, their kids, our children's children, God, will have something to stand on, a foundation of strength. God, and we pray again, above all else, God, that no glory comes to us, no celebration comes to any idea that we come up with, but God, all celebration, all honor, all glory goes to you. God, I pray for your favor over this night. And again, we pray and welcome your spirit here in this place. It's in Jesus' name, the life-giving, never-ending, loving name, that we pray these things. Amen. Would you please have the Pledge of Allegiance with us? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Pastor. What a beautiful prayer. All right, at this time, I will now call to order the board meeting of the Clay County School Board, September 7th, 2023. I want to take this time to welcome the citizens of Clay County and take this opportunity to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to attend tonight's school board meeting. This meeting is our opportunity as your elected representatives to collaborate openly and make decisions that will decide the future direction of our public schools and the education of our children here in Clay County. If you wish to address the board on an agenda item, there will be an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. Please fill out a card located at the side entry door, indicating the specific item number or topic that you wish to speak about, and turn it in promptly to one of our officers. If you have items that you would like to present to the school board or to the superintendent, please hand them to an officer who will distribute them accordingly. No additional cards will be accepted once the board moves to the public comment section under presentations from the audience. Your participation is welcome and appreciated. I want to point out the artwork at the back of the room in the cases. It's been beautifully created by our students at Orange Park High School under the direction of Carrie Keene, their art teacher. So if you get a chance at the end of the meeting, you want to walk around and enjoy the artwork, please do. At this time, we will have the State Social Studies Award winners recognized by Mary Owen, the Social Studies Curriculum Specialist here in Clay County.
Good evening, Board and Superintendent Broski. Before we begin, I'd like to ask for Ms. Stilts and Mr. Daniels to come on up. All right, so you might remember that at the June school board meeting, I introduced Ms. Stilts and Mr. Daniels to represent Clay County District Schools as the nominees for the Florida Council for the Social Studies Warren Tracy Beginning Teacher Award and Excellence in Teaching History Award. All counties across Florida were invited to nominate teachers, and we are so excited to share that both Ms. Stilts and Mr. Daniels have been selected by the Florida Council for the Social Studies Selection Committee as the overall winners out of a very competitive field. Yes. Yes. So Ms. Stilts, a U.S. history teacher at Middleburg High School, was nominated for the Warren Tracy Beginning Teacher Award by numerous colleagues, parents, and students. Each nomination described Ms. Stilts' ability to creatively engage her students and build positive relationships. I've witnessed firsthand her dynamic teaching and positive impact her selflessness has had on her students. As the recipient of this award, Ms. Stilts will have the opportunity to see her lesson plan published in Trends and Issues. Yes. All right. Mr. Daniels is a high school government economics teacher at Orange Park High School, and he was nominated for the Excellence in Teaching History Award by his colleagues for the impact that he's had on his students. Mr. Daniels' colleagues and administrators all describe him as a dedicated, passionate, caring, and student-centered teacher. Mr. Daniels readily and often utilizes the support of our local government offices, including the Clerk of Courts and Clay County Supervisor of Elections Office. I had the opportunity to join government classes last year at Orange Park High School as they took part in a voters registration drive, and it was put on in a joint effort by Mr. Daniels and the Supervisor of Elections Office. So there's no doubt that students leave Mr. Daniels' class with a more profound sense of the responsibility of citizenship. And as the recipient of this award, Mr. Daniels will also have the opportunity to see his lesson plan published in Trends and Issues. So let me go ahead and. No, you don't want to go there. You're good. You're good.
Oh, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So, thank you. It's a little different with just two teachers other than the 6 that we had back in June. So standing up there all by themselves. So Ms. Stilts and Mr. Daniels will both be recognized at the Florida Council for the Social Studies Awards dinner in Orlando next month. And we are just so proud of these two phenomenal educators and their commitment to social studies education and to the students of Clay County. Let's go ahead and give them one more round of applause.
Mr. Daniels, that shirt is awesome. I don't know if you guys can see it, but Mr. Daniels has Abe Lincoln all over his shirt. History teacher through and through. All right, next we will have the school celebrations for 2023 assessments. Mr. Broski will be making this presentation.
David Broski, my address is on file. How about Sweet Caroline? Let's bring that back again. All right, so thank you. I always feel weird when I give this kind of presentation every year. Schools themselves are filled with dedicated teachers and folks that work hard each and every year. So once a year, usually the first board meeting of the year, this meeting, we celebrate the accomplishments of schools on how they did on state's assessments. That is not to mean that there's still not a lot of work to be done. That work is usually done through the use of school improvement plans and other things, but by golly, if you don't take a minute to celebrate the work that's been done, you just never will. And so tonight we're going to recognize a couple schools, and when Ms. Watt and I were looking at the data, I said to myself, the problem with picking out a couple schools is that whatever schools you didn't pick, guess what? Right, I get hate mail or whatever related. Why didn't we get picked? And all of that. Folks, there's a lot of good folks in all of our schools doing great work with students, and we appreciate each and every one of them, but we couldn't be here till 8 o'clock tonight celebrating. Instead, we kind of narrowed it down. So first, let's just talk about our school system overall. We're in the top 10, and we're going to recognize 5 elementary schools, 3 junior highs, and 4 high schools today, but we're ranked second in 6th grade ELA, 6th and 10th grade ELA, 3rd, 5th, and 3rd. You see in that middle column, 6th overall in science, both 5th grade and 8th grade. And then you see number 1 in the state for civics education, 4th for U.S. history, 2nd overall. A lot of great accomplishments. Again, that doesn't mean there isn't a lot of work to do. I'm particularly focused on early literacy as well as students with disability as well as ELL students. But tonight's about celebrating the good work that's been done. So we're going to recognize a couple schools along the way. I've asked the wonderful Ms. Tito to be Vanna White this evening. The very first school that we're going to recognize is not in attendance today. We had a little thing called a hurricane, and Coppergate School of the Arts had to reschedule their open house to tonight. So they're at open house, but some of the work that they did, a 15 percentage point increase in science from one year to the next. And when we talked to them, we said, what happened? They said, make sure you give a special shout out to their 2 science teachers, Natalie Palesko and Linda Selby. So if they're watching tonight, your principal recognizes you as the people that made it all happen in science. The science teachers used data-driven instruction and delivered high-quality lessons aligned to standards, and that's really the key to success. Data-driven instruction, standard-based. Let's give a big round of applause for Coppergate, even though they're not here this evening. Next, we have McCray Elementary. Let's have I think I saw Miss Winkler. Come on, when I call you, come on, making your way down. Okay, I've been out to McCray several times. As soon as you walk into McCray, you sense an energy there. Part of that energy is Tammy Winkler, Miss Burt, and the whole crew there at McCray. They saw great results, a 6-point increase in their math scores. When asked why or how, the great results are due to their high-quality PLCs, where they work side by side with other inclusion teachers. And at McCray Elementary, all means all. All students means all. A big round of applause, McCray Elementary. I knew I had to have Miss Tito up here because it's kind of like you're doing the clicker, you're doing the paper, you're trying to talk at the same time. Okay, so I appreciate the team effort here. Shadowlawn Elementary, come on down. Come on down, Shadowlawn. Loud and proud. Oh, they brought a whole contingent. Okay, let's talk about this. 16-point increase in science, a 9-point increase in math from the previous year. Lots of great things. They earned a 76% proficiency in science, 83% proficiency in math. Principal Johnson has no doubt that our school success comes down to one factor. It's home to the best teachers in the district. Isn't that a true principal to say that? Congratulations to Shadowlawn Elementary. Give them a round of applause. Next, we have Fleming Island Elementary. Fleming Island Elementary, come on down. I see Miss McConnell, Miss Dover. So when you look at Fleming Island Elementary, they demonstrated exemplary achievement in all areas, really. 80% in science, 78% proficiency in ELA, 87% in math. When you look at Fleming Island Elementary, you see strong parent involvement. You see a Purple Star School that honors their military students there, as well as a PBIS school with targeted instruction to meet the needs of all learners. PLC work and collaboration is their key to success. A big round of applause for Fleming Island Elementary. Okay, another open house tonight. Orange Park Elementary School has open house tonight, but they're represented today by Abby Castillo. And Abby, if you might recognize, Abby is Clay County's 2024 School-Related Employee of the Year there. All of their scores are at a high level, 81% in English language arts, 84 in math, 92 in science, which is the highest in the district. OPA has a wide range of parent involvement and student engagement there. In addition, their PLCs are outstanding and they're standards-based education. So congratulations to Orange Park Elementary School. Miss Watt, can I take a picture? Okay, moving on to the junior high area. Okay, nice, nice. So we have Miss Pickett up here. Now that we move to secondary, first, let's go with Keystone Heights Senior High. Keystone, come on down. Take a look at that, a 19-point increase in civics there at Keystone Heights Junior High. They went from 63 to 82. That's quite a jump. Keystone attributes their success in civics to intentional, targeted instruction alongside their strong partnership with District Social Studies coach Stephanie Navarro. So a big shout out to Stephanie from the group here. Miss Navarro came out to Keystone every Tuesday. Numerous PLC work being done there, reviewing their data and targeting instructions and interventions. So congratulations to Keystone Heights. Give them a big round of applause. Next, we have at Oakleaf Junior High, 11% increase. And let me just say this, too. You know, it's probably not right to single one person out. Miss Dixon is a rock star. You know, I taught 10 years of junior high. That's how I lost my hair. Junior high is just it's a very tough age. Miss Dixon and the folks at Oakleaf Junior High, they do it with class and distinction. So thank you, not only for what you do for students, but just the whole environment out there. It's great work. Thank you, Wanitra. Next, we have Lakeside Junior High. That was exemplary. Here's Mr. James coming up now. Exemplary in many areas, including ELA, math, science, and civics. Teachers hold students to high expectations. Little known fact, one David Broski was a teacher there for 10 years, room 20, building 1, upstairs. There isn't a plaque or anything. I just always remember my room number being upstairs, and I kind of overlooked the parking lot, and that was kind of like a little separate duty that I had when I was there. Next, we're on to the senior high edition. First, Clay High, the Clay High Blue Devils in the house. Let me just say, I'm so proud of Clay High, Dr. Halter and the crew for their school-wide literacy efforts. You saw 11-point increase there. I was at Clay High today. One of the things I did notice in every classroom was their literary focus and their strategies regarding literacy. Not only research-based strategies, frequency of reading in all classes, as well as writing to support their thinking using contextual evidence. Congratulations to Clay High School. Next, we have Oak Leaf High School. I saw Mr. Boyack out there and part of his team out there. Let me just say, as a former, you got 3 Oak Leaf High principals here up on the group. 7-point increase, held a common vision for student success. Paige Soul led the 10th grade team. They created common formative assessments. They used data to drive their instruction. They worked as a team. They worked well together. Congratulations, Knights. Next, we have Ridgeview High School. Any Ridgeview folks in the house? 12-point increase in U.S. history, a 15-point increase in math. 3 U.S. history teachers who worked together for years, Sharon Moore, Tiffany Briley, and Amy Mayfield. A lot of the credit goes to those teachers. We want to recognize them. From the very first day, this team held on to the belief that every one of their students was highly capable of success throughout their course, and they proved that. So congratulations, Ridgeview High School. Next, we have Fleming Island High School. Okay, Fleming Island High School demonstrated exemplary achievement in all areas, ELA, math, science, and U.S. history. And in fact, they increased 8 points in the U.S. history category. Fleming Island's always been a high-achieving school. I believe I read, Mr. Pittman, ranked 90-something in the state of Florida. 98 in the state of Florida. So it's an exemplary school that does great work for our students. Let's go ahead and let's take the picture and let's get a big round of applause for the high school folks.
We have so much to be proud of here in Clay County, and these folks have worked exceptionally hard to get to where they are, so it's a privilege to honor their work tonight. Next, we have the Florida Safe School Assessment findings from Steve Mills, the Supervisor of Security and Safety here in Clay County.
Good evening. I'm Steve Mills, Safety Specialist, 925 Center Street, Green Cove Springs. In accordance to Florida Statute 106.1493, all districts must complete a safe assessment of each campus every year. The districts must ensure that the security risk assessments are submitted to the FSAT portal by October 1st of every year. On the 29th of August, I provided recommendations to the superintendent and the school board in a closed session which identified strategies and activities the school board should implement in order to address the findings and improve school safety. I just want to let you all know that in a public setting that the assessments are complete and they will be submitted by October the 1st deadline. I want to thank each school administrative staff, all public safety agencies in Clay County that took part of this, our guardian staff, along for assisting in this matter, in this task. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mills. We are always looking to improve safety and security. It's a never-ending endeavor, I know, so I appreciate all the work your department does every day. All right, next we have the Orange Park High School principal, Mr. Ivan Gunder, here to tell us a little bit more about his school.
Good evening, board and Superintendent Brodsky. Thanks for having us here. We appreciate it very much. When Miss Honor contacted me, she said 45 minutes, and I said I would try my best. I used to be an introvert, but I learned how to talk, so thanks to Miss Pickett, if she's in here. So, all right, so we just want to tell you, I have the pleasure of serving as principal at Orange Park High School. I never thought I would be a teacher, never thought I'd be an administrator, never thought I'd be a principal, because when I was in school, I was that kid. That was me. If you had that kid that annoyed you throughout class, that was me. But I'm here today because of my teachers, coaches, administrators didn't give up on me. So I'm grateful for that. So a couple things we try to do at Orange Park High School is make intentional connections. We like to say we are in the people business. And if kids don't know that you really care about them, they won't listen to you. So we try to be very, very intentional about making those connections with every child and their families as well. So we take that to heart. So we're kind of going to go through that a little bit here today. So this is our anthem here and our objectives for Orange Park High School. So our theme is Raiders on the Rise. So the R is to respect everyone. The misconceptions that a lot of students have is that I will respect you if you respect me first. So we just tell them, say, no, you always show respect, no matter what someone else does. That's a life skill. That will carry you a long ways in life. Increase accountability. We live in a society where it's easy to blame. It's easy to put it on someone else. Well, what can you do better? So we talk about accountability. Sensible actions, how to be nice. Just be kind. Be kind to one another. Just be nice. Hold the door for your teammates. Hold the door for your classmates, your teachers, and just be nice. And then excellent academics. This is why we're here. This is why we come to school, to obtain your high school diploma. There's many things in life you can do with your education, but there's only a few that you can do without it. And our objective is to maintain a positive, safe climate and culture, high expectations for teaching, student accountability for learning, and attend today so we can achieve tomorrow. So this is just a little snapshot of our school. We believe we're one of the most diverse schools in the district. This is our population. So we have grown almost 400 students in over 3 years here, but we like to tell the students, our kind of school kind of looks like the world. So just be kind, meet everybody. And our student population is very diverse, and so we appreciate that as well. This is one of my favorite quotes. A leader's role is greatly diminished without their team because no one can do everything alone, and no one knows everything. You don't become successful on your own. You have to rely on really good people. And I must stand before you and tell you, I have really good people to help me. So I just want to introduce them really quick. So this is our OP team. I did have a student that tell me that I was in the wrong profession. She told me I should be a model. So I love that picture. That's why I put that up there. So, our Mr. Boyer, he's our assistant principal. He's over our 12th graders. Dr. Mayberry, AP, she's over our juniors. Ms. Hayes, she's our assistant principal. She's over our 10th grade. Ms. Hayes is an alumni of Orange Park High School. Mr. Borson, he's new to us this year. He's over our 9th graders. Mr. Borson is an alumni of Orange Park High School. Ms. James, she's our dean of students, and Ms. Brightman, Coach Brightman, she's our athletic director. So that's our team, and we do feel we have the best team. A couple of months ago, we did a personality survey, and we brought different things to the table. So we like to feel like we were very mixed, and we all have strengths and weaknesses, areas to grow, but we complement each other. So we're grateful for that. So we're thankful. So Orange Park High School was started built in 1959. So this past year was the first time that front office had some renovations done. So we're grateful to, oh yeah, clap it up. Thank you. Thank you. I do want to thank Ms. Ellis for helping with that, and Dr. Kemp, I don't know if he's here, but they did, and Ms. Ellis is a proud graduate of Orange Park High School, and some of you came to our ribbon cutting, but it really changes the mindset of our students and families when they walk into there. And one thing we did that we thought was really neat, all the past principals that were still living, we gave them a piece of the original brick of the building and the years of service that they served at Orange Park. So we're excited about that. So this is kind of a picture of what our front office looks like now. So we highlighted 10 seniors up there that were voted on by their teachers from previous year. There are OP Rising Raiders, and they will stay up there for a year until the next set of 10 seniors get nominated. But that front office is amazing, so thank you very much. Here, this is our newly renovated home football stands. Many of you will see that tomorrow night, but we're grateful for the district for that. It is top notch. It looks very good, and we're really excited. And I think Clay is still here. I know they won tonight, but hopefully they don't win tomorrow. So, but thank you, Dr. Halter. All right, so this is kind of our theme, Raiders on the Rise. So every Friday, the highlight of the week, we go around and we pick one teacher, one student, and one staff member, and they are Raider of the Rise of the week, and the staff votes on that. So here goes just some of our pictures that we go around, and we highlight, we give them a shirt, we give them gift cards, but I tell you, the kids love it because they get to see their picture on Instagram and Facebook. It's all about likes. And now intentionally at lunch, they would say, see, I'm picking up trash. Hey, you see me? I'm putting my trash in the trash can. So it's really exciting, but we just want them to really just be good stewards in the classroom and also in life as well. So originally we called these OP-tunities, but it's opportunities with the OP. So this is our third year together as a team. So the first year, we wanted to listen. We wanted to listen to the staff and students. The second year, we wanted to learn the culture, and our third year is leading. So this year, we said this is our money year. So we are ready to lead here. So these are some of our goals this year: is increase our proficiency in ELA to 55%, math 45, U.S. history 78, biology to 70, and graduation rate 100%. So our last data that we received from the state, our graduation rate was 95%, which is really good. 5% of those students that started in the 9th grade did not get their high school diploma. To me, that's a travesty. So until we reach 100%, there's always work to do until we reach every single kid get that high school diploma. Acceleration rate, our goal is 60%, and we want to reduce the number of level 1 readers that we have. We have partnered in the past 2 years with our feeder schools, Mr. Goose at Orange Park Jr., and some of our elementary schools to see how we can do that vertical alignment to kind of help those students get excited and prepared for high school. This right here, this picture here, how do we do that? So one of the things we help the teachers. So randomly, I did not come up with this name, but they created a card called Gundy's Goodies on the Go. So we'll pick a day, and the staff will go around and we'll give teachers just treats just to let them know that we care about them and we love them and we appreciate their work that they do every single day. One of the things we emphasize to our students and staff is to understand your why. HWYC, I challenged our admin team this year. How would you change? What would be different about you this year? If you're the same leader this year that you were last year, then something is wrong. We should be constantly growing and constantly trying to improve ourselves. So remember your why. But what is why? We say that. What is your why? Why do you do this work? So we went a little deeper. Remembering who helped you when you were at school. Who was that teacher? Who was that adult that helped you? So we want to show that same compassion to others. Who hurt you? Remember those wounds. We all have wounds. We all have things that we're working through. So just showing that empathy to others. And then who or what healed you? You know, who helped you overcome some of those obstacles? So we want to pass that on to our students. And this is one of our favorite pictures. So right before we go out for graduation, we do a selfie with the graduating class. It's one of our proudest moments. And every year, the students say, all right, we're ready for our picture. So one thing in high school, you can't do something once and not do it again, because they remember and they want it. So this is one of our favorite quotes here. What we are fixing on the outside, but where the real problem is underneath. So we try to do a great job of getting to the root cause of the problem. You know, as we mentioned earlier, a lot of students are carrying a lot of trauma, and some of our clientele, our students, they're going through a lot of things. So we try not to just address the outside, but we try to make those intentional connections to understand the root of the problem and how can we fertilize that root so the fruit can grow. So that's kind of our motto. This year we're onboarding our Cambridge ACE program. We're excited about that. Also, we onboarded the Boys and Girls Club. So this is some pictures of our Boys and Girls Club, which is exciting. One thing we learn about our students is after school tutoring is a challenge because some of them have to get home and take care of their students, take care of their siblings and so on. But the Boys and Girls Club provides transportation to them and it drops them off to their doorstep. So right now we have almost over 125 students that participate in Boys and Girls Club every single day. So we're excited about that. Also, we're a community partnership school, so we're under the direction of Miss Erica Gilbert. She's here tonight. So she does a great job. The community partnership schools model leverages into social and institutional capital of core partners. So some of the things that they do dental cleanings on campus. We have some monthly food drives every third Thursday. Is that correct? We hand out food to families. Also, we have the backyard pantry. So anytime a parent or student or staff member needs someone to make an appointment to come get some things for their house, they're welcome to do that. And one of our biggest hit is our OP outfitters. A lot of our students, they're embarrassed about, not having certain things, but we have a clothes bank that's ongoing throughout the year, so we're able to provide those services to them and their families. It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken people, by Frederick Douglass. So that's our goal for every student to walk across that stage and get their diploma. I tell the seniors this past week, I said, your parents don't want to hear my speech. They want to hear your name called. Do not rob them of that opportunity. And lastly, we finish every faculty meeting and every whole group PLC where we honor at least 2 or 3 teachers, and we call them the master teacher. We just want to let them know that we see you, we hear you, we appreciate you, and we love you. So just like we do it at school, we will finish our meeting here today. Thank you for your time, but we have an apple for each of you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You guys, I can't even imagine what a inspiring place it must be to work at Orange Park High School with that kind of leadership every day. Thank you for being with us tonight. All right, so at this time, this will be the last call for comment cards. And right before we move into the presentation from the audience section, I just wanted to address, I've had several phone calls, emails, text messages from staff, from board members, from community members who have felt the tenor of our meetings to be lending itself towards personal attacks. And I want to take ownership of that as your chair. It is my goal that we always run a meeting that is respectful and orderly, that it reflects well of the values that I know we all hold dear here in Clay County. So as your board members and as our public, I hope that we can all commit to govern ourselves in a way that is kind and respectful of all members of the district and all members of the community. I'm just going to reiterate our school board policy here as it addresses conduct at school board meetings. All attendees and participants in any school board meeting are expected to act and speak in a courteous, professional, and respectful manner. When necessary, the public shall be informed it is unlawful to knowingly and substantially disrupt or interfere with public school board meetings. And the expectations, just to kind of bullet point what that looks like in a school board meeting, it's that comments from the dais here and from the podium there should be addressed to the board as a whole and not to any individual school board member. We're not calling anybody out by name. No person may address the board with personal or slanderous remarks or with boisterous behavior. Members of the audience should refrain from any disruptive demonstration of approval or disapproval of any comments. We're going to be respectful of whoever's speaking. Everybody has the right to voice their opinion in a manner that is respectful of everybody in the room. And lastly, any materials that are shared with the board must be given to a police officer and not handed directly to anybody on the dais. And I wanted to reiterate that with our board. I think it's important that we all recognize that these are the standards we hold everybody to in this room, because nobody wants to walk in here and feel personally attacked by anybody else. So I'm just going to ask before we begin our comments that we start with that tone and move forward in that manner. And I'm committed as your chair to ensure that we all abide by these rules. Okay? So with that, our first speaker will be Ms. Helena Cormier.
I just want to say thank you again for being able to be here, and I'll try not to cry. I absolutely love our school systems and our school. Seeing the band in here, seeing everybody that does so much is so special for our children, and that's why we do it. And as many of y'all know, what we've went through has just been really, really hard. My son is still not in school. He's not getting to enjoy all of these privileges that we get to enjoy for high school. And it breaks my heart. There's a lot that y'all have to do as our leaders and as our school board members, and the votes and the different things that y'all have is a huge burden. And I get that, I understand that. We'll never make everybody happy, but we're trying to do the best we can. And I thank you for everybody that is trying so hard. But just know that you've got a mom whose heart is broken, and you have one child, at least one, that's not included in the all. Every time y'all say all students, you've got one that's not there, and he does want to be there. It's not safe, and there's stuff that needs to be dealt with. I know y'all are working through that. And I pray that y'all have the knowledge and the guidance to be able to do the things that y'all need to do. And I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cormier. Next, we have Bruce Friedman. I'm going to go ahead and let everybody know who's up next so that we can move through them as quickly as possible. Next will be McLeod, is that correct? Following Mr. Friedman.
Good evening, all. Last month, I submitted a considerable number of book challenges. Yesterday, I was advised that 38 more titles were permanently removed from the district. They were found to have violated Statute 847. They were pornographic in nature. Also learned that there were 24 books that I had challenged where the challenge had failed. So I'm bringing to you 24 more individual requests for an appeal. That brings the total number of pending appeals, I believe, to 277. That's how much paperwork has piled up while this district failed to create a rubric and a guideline. I'm also submitting 42 additional challenges, many of them also violating Statute 847 with pornographic content. We are in first place. Clay County has removed more books than any other county in Florida. Clay County has faced more challenges than any other county in Florida. That will continue until you create a rubric and a guideline. That's all I have to share with you tonight. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Friedman. Next, we have John McLeod. I think I'm saying that correctly. Forgive me if I'm not. And next will be Sherry Murphy.
Yeah, I think I wrote that with a pencil. Hey, good evening, everybody. Board members, Superintendent, my name is John Medwood. I'm the father of 3 children. Presently attending, Fleming Island High School. My children grew up here, went through Fleming Island Elementary, Lakeside, and now they're here. I'm here tonight. This has been on my radar for a while. My work schedule has not permitted me to attend these. I'd like to be here more often, but I'm here tonight regarding a book called Heroin, as in a female hero, not the drug, although there's references to heroin, the drug, in the book. Now, I know what proper decorum is. I don't need legal staff, and I certainly don't need the rule of law to explain this to me. I have enough knowledge to know what pornographic material is without running it through the legal machine, although we have lawyers here that are here for a reason. I think it's sad that it comes to that when their resources and time can be devoted to other important matters, fiscal and budgetary matters, but here we are tonight. I took the time to go through each of your bios that you publicly share on the website, and rightfully so, you mention your academic background, your credentials, which I respect, But I'm wondering who the gatekeepers are for books that are on the library shelf in the public, in the Clay system here. I assume it's the board members. Do you guys get to determine what's on the shelf and what goes? That's a question.
We don't typically respond to questions. This is your time to
Okay,
make comment.
well, here we go. They're on the shelf, and I'm wondering, in your bios, you mentioned championing children. You're here for the children. So I want to know how you reconcile a book called The Heroine with the word fuck 46 times. Where is the academia in that? And by your own testimony, you guys list your academic credentials. I know you guys have been through the academic curriculum to understand what academia is and what academia is not. So how these books pass through this filter, it amazes me, but here we are. And I think it's sad when you write in your own bios, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm not gonna go through each of them, but the general gist is that you're here for the children, you champion children, and allow this smut and pornography to be within easy reach and access on school property. You guys have more protection here with illegal staff and armed officers than we provide for our children. How do you reconcile that? I see I'm out of time. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Next is Sherry Murphy, and she will be followed by Michael Holt. And again, just as a reminder, when you come to the podium, if you would state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Sherry Murphy. I live at Centerwood Avenue in Maxville, Florida. I wrote a letter to Ms. Gilhousen a few weeks ago, and I'd like to read it before all of you today. Thank you for your service to our children and community through your leadership on the Clay County School Board. I appreciate your commitment to make Clay County the best place to raise a family through holding to truth and reason. I'm writing to make you aware of a fantastic Bible-based school club, but also to appeal to you concerning the Clay County District policy of charging for the use of your facilities at Wilkinson Elementary for this club. I understand that this policy is for all clubs who use of school facilities, but I'd like you to consider these circumstances. First Baptist Church Middleburg has paid the fee for the past 2 years for the Bible-based Good News Club for the children at Wilkinson Elementary, yet it has provided its own facilities at absolutely no cost to various school district functions for many years, including teacher training, Middleburg High School band and chorus concerts, and also recently the Middleburg High School band camp for an entire week this past July. First Baptist Middleburg is being charged $120 yearly fee for the Good News Club to meet 1.5 hours weekly from October through April, and a portable at Wilkinson to teach children about God and His wonderful Word. Principal Hayward welcomes us every week, every year, in partnership with the First Baptist Middleburg and the volunteers that it has provided occasionally. The Good News Club is a wonderful organization that has met at Wilkinson for the past 8 years. This club is free to the students, and our team of 7 volunteers go weekly to try to meet some of the social and spiritual needs of the children by teaching Bible lessons and verses and songs in a fun and meaningful way. It's provided by Child Evangelism Fellowship, which is a not-for-profit ministry supported strictly by donations. It provides the curriculum for Good News Club and seeks to partner families with a local church. Ms. Gilhousen, I have been given information that Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts clubs are not charged for the use of the same facilities, and they are a for-profit organization. I ask that you take this situation in consideration, given the circumstances of the use of our church facilities at no cost to the school district, and given the information that other clubs are not being charged. I thank you for the important work you all do, and I realize how valuable your time is. Please know that I am praying for each of you on the school board by name regularly for wisdom, guidance, and all the decisions you must make concerning our children and their educational needs.
Thank you so much, Ms. Murphy. Mr. Superintendent? Okay. Ms. Murphy, the superintendent will have staff get with you about that issue. Thank you. All right, next we have Michelle Holt, followed by Jacob Saunders.
My name is Michelle Holt. My address is on file. I'm a recently retired Clay County teacher and a new member of the Clay County Educators Retired. I'm addressing the school board and Mr. Broski this evening regarding school board remarks made by one member about the implementation of Achieve, and I will be direct and to the point. These extemporaneous and public comments insinuated the teachers lacked or had an inability to administer Achieve in an interesting and successful manner for their students. That certainly got my immediate attention. I found these comments from my vantage point in the audience that evening as follows: uninformed, erroneous, isolated, random in the referencing without any academic rigor, and ultimately offensive to me personally. Most importantly, it was offensive to my most diligent and hardworking colleagues. It was wrong, and it does require an apology as public as the defamation that occurred. Achieve may be gone, however, it was a good tool, and it served us well. It was abruptly removed at the most inappropriate time for students, without warning, and for teachers with nothing to replace it to meet specific standards. These standards that you so highly applauded earlier in our meeting from schools that had done tremendous work. What a terrible error. How very short-sighted. And at the very least, a tremendous disappointment.
Thank you. Next is Jacob Saunders, and he will be followed by Fred Conler.
Hello, my name is Sergeant Jacob Saunders, and my address is exempt from public record. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the school board and the public. I'm here this evening to address the upcoming decision in regards to the continued existence of the Clay County District Schools Police Department. I would ask that the school board members, prior to voting on the restructuring of the school board PD, remember to look closely at all of the information provided, consider their source, the credibility and possible motive or motives of the source, and the longevity and possible changes which may occur as political figures and administrators change in the years to come. As a taxpaying citizen in Clay County, I fully understand and agree there should be occasional discussion about whether or not the school board PD is still more fiscally responsible way to protect the students and staff of the district schools. And I do not take any issue with that discussion. However, during a board member's comments from the school board member remarks portion of the June 29th school board meeting, an attempt was made to rush a vote with minimal information, which left the other board members unprepared to make such a substantial decision, which would involve millions of dollars, about 50 jobs, and would directly impact the safety of the students and staff members of this district. Those words with proverbial blood in the water regarding public comments, which led to insults, misinformation, and out of context, out of date, inaccurate, and in some instances, false information presented by some members of special interest groups. The discussion singled out the school board PD for restructuring, and one of the points was the school board should not be involved in law enforcement. I would like to point out the school board is involved in transportation, mental health, nutrition, social welfare, information technologies, vehicle maintenance, facilities maintenance, HVAC, plumbing, grounds maintenance, and I have no doubt there are many other tasks that initially seemed odd to be part of the school board's repertoire, but are now fully accepted and rarely challenges their validity under the school board's purview. As much as I wish you were right about not needing a school board police department, we now live in a time where school board police departments are a necessity, and they are the norm in Florida and across the nation. During a recent training, Chief Probation Officer Chris Massey of the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice was presenting to the school board PD when he shared the state of Florida DJJ is watching Clay County because of our huge success with the juvenile civil citation program in connection with teen court compared to the rest of the state. According to their website, teen court is a nationally acclaimed diversion program designed to divert qualified juvenile offenders from formal juvenile proceedings. Utilizing the principles of restorative justice, teen court aims to provide juveniles with the opportunity to accept responsibility for his or her actions by completing sanctions that are designed to be constructive and rehabilitative, seeking to repair the harm done to the victims and the community. Although all 4 law enforcement agencies can take credit for this success, the school board PDs represents the lion's share of the stat. I bring this up because I would like to help people understand what is taking place when juveniles are not arrested. First of all, the officers and school administrators are not authorized to share with others the outcome of disciplinary measures leveled on juveniles. When students are telling parents or other students just went home with a parent or rode a bus home, or when people are looking at statistics for arrests, they could mistakenly think nothing is being done about criminal incidents at school. However, what actually may be happening is the accused student for qualifying crimes received a juvenile civil citation and will now be dealing with the teen court program. This would not show as an arrest. The crime is not being hidden, brushed under the rug, or ignored, but rather it is being handled in a way which is only available to juveniles and is restorative in nature rather than punitive.
Thank you so much, Mr. Saunders. Next is Fred Conler, followed by Carol Newbern.
Hello, my name is Fred Conley, and I reside at 417 Wesley Road in Green Cove Springs. It was brought to my attention, virtually what Sergeant Saunders was just speaking about. The biggest room in the world is a room for improvement. Everybody has heard that. To call for a quick vote, frankly, uncalled for. I thank you for having a discovery meeting about it, and I implore you to have another discovery meeting about it. Make more public announcements so the public can come and speak. As you can see, there's not very many here. We think, constituents or not, more need to come and voice their opinion about what the Clay County Police Department means to my children. Safety is above all. If there's an immediate emergent situation near a school and we do not have our county police force in place for the school board, the Clay County deputy can leave that school unattended, unsecured, and open for assault. It does not take a rocket scientist to understand what that could mean for safety of my kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Carol Newbern, followed by Amber Stanhope.
Good evening, board, staff. I'm Carol Newbern, my address is on file. I watched your workshop last week, and you guys do have a lot on your plate. Thank you for the time you take to serve our county. My point this evening, as a person new to community involvement, is that I have expectations for those in leadership. You have to be good managers of resources, both people and finances. The example you present goes a long way in establishing the culture and climate of the entire system. What jumped out to me after watching the workshop was, again, what I've addressed before. Who has responsibility? Who has authority? Who's accountable if a mistake is made? And what are the repercussions? In watching the part where you were discussing Cesar, it seemed like a lot fell through the cracks. You addressed some good stuff here, but in the process of discussing it, it seemed like people didn't know how the system worked. So my question was, say if a student doesn't properly turn in an assignment and said they did not fully understand the guidelines, who's held responsible? Is the teacher responsible for not properly presenting the guidelines? Or is the student responsible for not doing his own follow-up? Or is the curriculum responsible for being too complicated? So what I would hope from leadership is that things don't fall through the cracks. Who was supposed to train you guys in this program? Who didn't do their job in training you properly in how to check the correct boxes and stuff? It was an interesting presentation, but it kind of didn't say, oops, I should have followed through here, or oops, I should have followed through there. I mean, it's a very serious system. It's important it's done right. So my question would be that I would want my leaders to know how to know what's going on, to not know what they don't know, and just use that as a reason for not having done something correctly that's very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newbern. The next speaker is Amber Stanhope, followed by Adam Warren. Oh, yeah. You get 3 minutes.
Stanhope, 792 Sycamore Way, Orange Park, Florida, 32073. I'm actually starting my 4th year of teaching here at Argyle. Happy to say I've stayed committed. I moved down from Maine about 10 years ago. I'm sorry, 3 years ago. I taught in Maine for 10 years. Same school, same administrator. I'm now on my 6th administrator here. It hasn't been easy. I've seen 40 teachers leave our school in 2.5 years, not to leave education, but to leave Argyle. And I've never, ever said I can't. I'm a college athlete. I know there's no I in team. I was an EMT for 10 years overnights. I ran my own business for 13 years, raised 5 kids, and was a foster parent. And I never, ever have thought I can't. And I can't. And I realize now that it's not okay to say you stay for the kids, because sometimes it gets to a point where staying for them is worse than leaving for them. We're in a situation at Argyle right now where 2 of our best teachers, have been put on leave because they were up against insurmountable odds, like we all are, understaffed at every grade level, out of compliance, moving huge numbers of kids across campus, without support, without protocol, without procedures. My EMS background has told me that. I'm in my 4th year at the car rider duty alone, on the front line, handling confrontations with parents, questioning safety. And that didn't matter until the week after this child was lost. Then all of a sudden, many points that were brought up matter. We're scurrying around the whole next week, name tags, procedures, policies, lists, all things that should have been put in place already. I was told my first day, 3 minutes before dismissal, that I just had to get all the car rider kids to the front car rider line. I'm like, oh, mine? Oh, yours? Oh, all of 4th grade? Oh, I don't even know them. Who are they? So imagine being day 1 or day 2 with kids you don't even know, 80 or 90, shuffling across campus with 700 more students. And one of them just decides they're going in the other direction. You don't have a checklist. You don't have any protocol. You have nothing. Most of you don't even have a radio. We're told we're a team. We're responsible for all 800 kids. We should all be gone. We should all be gone. And I'm sorry, but if I was in administration, I would have been the first one to stand up and own some of this. And if this means I don't have a job, I don't have a job. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Adam Warren, and Mr. Warren will be followed by Dariel Stockman.
Good evening. I'm Adam Warren, 2839 Harvest Moon Drive, Orange Park. Wanted to start off with just a couple years ago, I stood before you guys unhappy about the Argyle rezoning thing, and I just wanted to let you know that as I wasn't happy about the whole process, I fully believe everything Mr. G said. You got that part right. He's amazing. He's been overwhelmingly welcoming to us, and so good job. Hope we can get the junior high up there as well. So just wanted to say that before I get started with the whole situation with Argyle. I've been there for 9 years at Argyle Elementary. Had 4 kids come through there. One, obviously, again, he's in high school. Other 3 are still there. As Ms. Stanhope said here, I think it's very important to understand that, yes, 2 of the best teachers we have are out because of a miscommunication and all that. Luckily, the little girl was found safe. I mean, you know, completely different side of the story there, but it all comes back to leadership. She hit the nail on the head when she said that a true leader would have stood up and took the fall. There's really nothing else you can really elaborate on that, but just the simple fact that we've got 2 of the best teachers that have now only seen their kids 2 days, and we're over a month into the school system, to this year's school. 1 month, they've already been sitting out. 3 of my kids had missed Newport. Let me tell you something. Them kids have missed 1 month of something that they'll probably never be able to get back. She is going to go in there and fight for it if you guys allow it, but you've got to get them teachers back in there. I have witnessed time and time again, like she had mentioned how many administrators we have. I know I'm on our 4th or 5th principal. I've honestly lost count. It's almost a circus. There's days that it's a circus. I made the comment in an email to some of you that I get more communication on the correction of miscommunication. So just take what I just said and realize that they can't even get the days right for open houses, the days right for award ceremonies, the times right. We get so many robocalls correcting, oh, it's not this day, so sorry, or oh, it's not this time. Those are the little things that add up to kids getting lost. If we can't get the little things right, how will we ever get the big things right? So it's unfortunate that it happened, but like I said, for the simple fact that there's still no higher ups that have been, that are still, they're still every day. And like she said, that all of a sudden after this little girl got lost, then all of a sudden it was important. So please, let's get them teachers back in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Dariel Stockman, and then followed by Judith Chappell.
Hello, I'm Dariel Stockman. My daughter was the one that got lost at Arlington Elementary, and she didn't wander off. I don't know if that was some kind of misunderstanding. She was
Ms. Stockman,
actually
I'm so
told
sorry
go
to
with the
interrupt you.
walkers.
Can you state your address so that we have it for the record?
I'm at 322 Wildberry Court in Orange Park, Florida.
Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Darielle. I have a daughter that's in kindergarten. On August 11th, I showed up to my daughter's school to pick her up, and they couldn't find her. The police had to be called to search for her, and a Good Samaritan ended up finding her almost 2 miles away from the school. This was very devastating to our family. Although we were happy to have her back, it was still very traumatizing to go up to the school and everybody ignore you while you repeatedly have to ask where your daughter is, and nobody has an answer for it. And to be found out that later on that she was told to go with the walkers, even though she didn't know any other student there. She was 4 years old, first time in a big school. A couple of points I want to make is when I saw her teacher, she assured me that she had my daughter in the line with her to be picked up by car. This caused us to believe that she was still on campus. We later found out that the teacher was not honest and my daughter was never in her line. She was delayed. She was never in her line, and this delayed her being found sooner. Had she been honest about my daughter not being in her line, or at least told us that she wasn't sure, she wouldn't have walked alone for so far. The other teacher who walked her out with the walker should have known that she had a student that she hadn't had the day before. And my daughter also had the correct tag on her backpack, identifying her as a car rider. And this teacher still had my daughter walk. Like I said, my daughter doesn't know any other students at the school. She didn't see her hold hands or communicate with anybody. It was no reason to think that she was a walker. This teacher also saw her leave while we were still looking for my child. Between these two teachers, they should have been able to catch this mistake before I even realized she was missing, and they didn't. It could have cost my daughter her life. They also could have at least apologized or checked on my daughter after making such a detrimental mistake. I went on Facebook searching for answers and trying to see who I recognized for the teachers who were responsible, and one of them made a remark about a few curveballs being thrown her way in the first couple of days, and it was very insensitive and upsetting to read that because it was much more than just a small curveball my daughter was missing. As parents, we thought we covered all the precautions and what ifs into my daughter's care and safety, but I didn't factor in that she could get lost from being directed by adults who I told her to listen to. I've learned to add extra layers of protection for her safety since. I'm asking that you consider the negligence, the carelessness, and the lack of empathy of these teachers when deciding their recommendations. I want to thank the superintendent, Mrs. Troutman, and Mrs. Tito for your quick response and all of your help in making changes throughout the school district so this won't happen again to another family. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Miss Judith Chappell, followed by Victoria Tompkins. And Ms. Tompkins will be our final speaker of the evening.
Hi, my name is Judith Chappell, and my address is on file. I did also watch the workshop twice. And I want to agree with something that Mr. Brodsky said, is that I do agree that all of us want the same thing for our children. We all want the best for our children. I just think that we have different ways of going about it. We have different ideas often about how to go about doing that. And I think that in America, that's okay. It's okay for us to question. It is our right to question, and that's okay. As I was watching the workshop, and I want to say this, and I want to thank you for your presentation. I want to say this about the presentation as I was watching it. I am not uninformed. I am not new to Clay County. I've been here for over 38 years. I am not new here. I've had 3 children that went through the Clay County schools, graduated from Clay High. My son just turned 40 years old a couple of weeks ago, so I'm not a newcomer here. I'm not new to what goes on in Clay County. I'm not new. I don't have new ideas, way far out ideas as to what's going on. I had concerns. I have concerns when the questions that we ask about what was going on in Clay County, about the reporting and not reporting, and the safety of our children. As the young lady who just spoke, the mother who just spoke, what is going on in the schools, what's being reported, what's not being reported. Missing children, you would not believe the amount of tracking devices I have on that little girl sitting at that table, because those are the concerns that we all have as parents. The number one most important job to me right now is that of a grandmother, because her mother is no longer alive. If you're not a grandparent, you have no idea. Being a parent, yeah, that's great. But as her grandmother, that is my number one most important job. As I listened to and I went through and I saw all of these, you asked this question, that's false. You asked this question, that's false. You asked this question. We want the same thing for our children. I want to make certain that my child is learning. I want to make certain that she is safe. Those are my only concerns. I am over Google Classroom. I'm overachieved. I want things back to basics. That's the first thing I mentioned when I started coming back to the school board meetings, because again, my child is 40 years old, so I was done with this. I want basic understanding and education put back in the classroom. Pencil and paper, it still works. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chappelle. Next is Victoria Tompkins, and that'll be our final speaker for the evening.
Victoria Tompkins, 1343 Secret Cove Road, Middleburg, Florida. I'm here again to speak on the book situation in Clay County. First, I would like to thank the few who bothered to respond to my email and for your comments, Mrs. Gilhousen, before opening the floor. My concern is that we are still at a standstill, both with purchasing new books for our school libraries and with starting the process of allowing teachers to submit books from their personal libraries to get them added to Destiny. Why are we at a standstill? Because one man has made it his personal mission to keep books out of the hands of Clay County students. A man who continuously harasses and threatens Clay leadership and our media specialists. Many people are against what he is doing. People are angry and upset, and yet no one at a higher level is speaking out. There's a lot of talk about parental rights. What about all the parents who stood at this podium and expressed their concern about the current state of our libraries? What about those who are mad and concerned and can't be here? Do all those voices not count? Are the only voices that count are the ones that align with others' personal belief systems? We can't continue to wait to clear the backlog of challenged books because this man plans to continue what he is doing. I do find it interesting that he does seem to have the ear of certain district leadership while others go ignored. State law is clear about what doesn't belong in a book, and yet he continues to frivolously challenge books based on his personal agenda and religious beliefs. I would like to challenge the board and Clay County leadership to start speaking up and speaking out. While the entire problem may not be able to be solved immediately, let's start somewhere. If you aren't sure where, let me suggest we start with our nonfiction books. Allow media specialists to start ordering and purchasing nonfiction books. Let's start the process of allowing teachers to submit books with their nonfiction choices. Start being more transparent, or those in charge, have them be more transparent about what is going on. If you don't have enough people to read books or the challenge forms, put the word out. It shouldn't be a secret. Encourage others to volunteer. I am more than willing to go door to door to let Clay County citizens know the depth of this issue. If your mission is to provide the best opportunities for all students to succeed, please come together as a group to start fixing this issue. If not, the people of Clay County can and will come together to do it ourselves.
All right, at this time, we will move to the adoption of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move approval.
I have a motion from Ms. Bola. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Ms. Clark. Any discussion? I will note that we had item C11, the 7 mindsets, life skills, and character education pulled to discussion. So that is withdrawn from the consent agenda at this time. So seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, next we have,
Ms. Honora, can you vote for me? Thanks.
next we have the CCEA update from Ms. Vicki Kidwell.
Good evening. The Florida Constitution outlines essential rights of Florida citizens, and it also outlines specific responsibilities of the state of Florida. Article 1, the Declaration of Rights, talks about the right to work. Article 9 talks about education with many details. The education of children is a fundamental value of the people of the state of Florida. It is therefore a paramount duty of the state to make adequate provision for the education of all children residing within its borders. Adequate provision shall be made by law for a uniform, efficient, safe, secure, and high-quality system of free public schools that allows students to obtain a high-quality education, and for the establishment, maintenance, and operation of institutions of higher learning and other public education programs that the needs of the people may require. Employees' right of self-organization. Employees shall have the right to self-organization, to form, join, or assist labor unions or labor organizations, or to refrain from such activity, to bargain collectively through representatives of their own choosing, and to engage in concerted activities for the purpose of collective bargaining or other mutual aid or protection. In keeping with the Constitution, I would like to announce that CCA bargaining has begun for the 2023-24 school year. Clay County Education Association is a proud partner with Clay County District Schools. We are a top 10 district in the state of Florida due to the dedicated staff in our district. Clay County District School educators are committed to developing lifelong learners in our public schools. CCA understands that student learning conditions are directly influenced by teacher working conditions. In this challenging climate, it's critical for all stakeholders to work together to ensure Clay County students' learning conditions reach the highest level possible while supporting our teachers and improving their working conditions. We need the support of our district and the school board, as well as the community. Together, we have the power to ensure positive change for our students, our schools, and our community. Teaching is challenging. This is a profession where you can make an impact on the future like none other. The responsibility is great. No one wants to make mistakes. Sometimes teachers are expected to be superhuman, but they are only human. They must work as a team. Every human makes mistakes. Their humanity is essential to their ability to connect with the students. No one is diminishing the problem of the incident referenced earlier. As a parent, I can only imagine my worst nightmare. I have met with the teachers at Argyle Elementary School, and I have seen their tears, and I know they are devastated that this happened and that they had responsibility in it. I hope and pray that the district and board will value the wholeness of each teacher's record and dedication and not judge any teacher on a single mistake. Teachers deserve grace too. They are only human. There were many factors involved, and I hope that you will look at that and recognize it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kidwell. Do we have any representatives from CESPA here tonight? No? Okay. Next, we have the superintendent's update and presentation. Mr. Broski.
All right. I want Sweet Caroline to come back again. Can we get Sweet Caroline to come back?
I'll take the drum line.
Or the drum line. That was good. That was really good. All right. So tonight got the start of the school year. Going to talk a little bit about family engagement. Going to talk about hurricanes. I know nobody wants to talk about that. We're going to talk about PM1 testing as well as the School of the Month. So let's just say this, right? This is the why. This is why we come to what we do, right? When I see kids smiling, I was out 7 or 8 schools first couple days. Kids are smiling. They were telling me they were excited to be there with their friends. Now, they did tell me they weren't excited about learning. That's a whole nother thing, right? But that they're young. They'll get there, okay? And I would just say it never gets old for me every time that we have an opening day and just seeing why it is we do what we do. Let me tell you, a lot of people were excited. I don't think any group was more excited than the parents that sent their students back. I think there were celebrations all across Clay County when school opened up and students were back in school. The other thing about school, school is more than just a learning part. There are certain traditions that happen that are part of the culture that make a difference in a young person's life. And I will tell you, I'll be the first one to say, sometimes it's not academics, right? I don't know, I'm not going to ask a question to the audience like how many people went to school for other reasons other than learning, but it's part of who we are as a culture. Things like the return to sports, seeing kids in a different way. For me, I probably wouldn't have done well in school if it wasn't for 2 things. One, my father, who made sure you were going to do what you're supposed to do, and it was unquestioned. And the second was the coaches. They were the people that were my role models. So having a good total experience for students is really the goal. And that's so multifaceted. It's more than just the academics that I touted earlier on in the day. I want to talk a little bit about family engagement. I'm very proud of our strategic plan. It was a full year of preparation to get us to that point where we actually produced the document in June. One of our main goals is family and community engagement. No other organization, education is the ultimate team sport, is what I usually say. It requires great educators in the classroom, good support folks all around them, the support of the board, the superintendent, all of those things that we consider to be the education piece of it. But it also requires 2 other groups. It requires parents and their involvement in the educational process, and it also requires the community at large. And so having a goal, being this a major goal, goal 3, family and community engagement. How do we get our families back in the school, more involved in their child's lives and in their education? So one of the things that we have now is a volunteer portal. If you go to the www.oneclay.net/volunteer, there's a way to sign up to be a volunteer in the school. And when you're talking about volunteering in schools, there's so many ways that you can volunteer in schools. Here are some of the ways, and this was just like a quick list to put it out there to volunteer. Help with fundraising, donate supplies, assist the teacher, field trips. When you think about it, the involvement of parents in the process is really key. I always say that parents have students far greater percentage of the time than schools. So we need parents' help and parents working with the school system to help their child. Hurricanes. I just got to say something, because the process for a hurricane is it's like a week-long process. It's not a snap decision. Like, what do you do? Like, shut schools down, keep them open. Students start, as soon as there's like a yellow dot on the screen, students start emailing me.
I think teachers do too.
Teachers do too. And they start saying, hey, looks dangerous out there. We shouldn't have school like next Monday, because of the storm. Everybody wants that, but there is an actual process involved. So I thought it'd be interesting to give you a quick 2 minutes. Like, how does this happen? Like, what do you do when you see the storm and Mike Burrish is going nuts on TV? Like what's the process? How does this work, right? So let's just take a look at this as kind of like a model. And this worked pretty much like most hurricanes work. And by the way, hurricane season is just starting, right? So this will have other opportunities with other storms, I'm certain.
Don't speak that evil.
But, as soon as they start monitoring the tropic and you start to hear those projections saying, hey, it could hit the Florida Peninsula, everybody starts to go into high gear, right? Emergency management, the police department, the school system itself looks to go and have our principals go out and make sure our campuses are ready for the storm. Same way you would at home, right? You go outside, you move the outdoor furniture, you move the plants, you do all that stuff. Well, we do that, but we do that for 6.3 million square feet of space across 644 miles of territory. So it's a little bit larger scale when that comes. And in this particular case, gosh, it's a whole day of meeting at emergency operations. So I just want you to picture this. I'll give you a visual. Picture a big table. And at the table, one of the things I'm most proud of in Clay County is we have good community partnerships with agencies. You have the emergency management director, you have the superintendent of the schools, you have the sheriff, you have the chief of the fire department, and several other public safety people. And we're all there. Our number one concern is the safety of students, right? So not only do we go all that preparation, and that just looks like a graph to you, but there's a whole organized way for principals to know and to prepare for when a hurricane is coming for their particular site. So we also use the National Weather Service. So some of the questions that come into my mind is when do the winds start? Like when does it actually reach us? Not when you see it on a map somewhere in alongside Cuba. It's like when will the winds? They actually have predictive models that are pretty accurate, right? It'll say, hey, winds will start at X time. And as the superintendent, I'm saying, hey, when do you predict the winds are coming? And it's not. This is the National Hurricane Center. This is the National Weather Service. So when you make those decisions, student safety is and faculty safety, number one, but it's based on the information that's provided, and it's kind of a complex process. Please know I don't take the responsibility seriously. In fact, I would say that is the most challenging of decisions being superintendent, because I realize what it means. If you don't, first of all, aside from the student safety issue, which is step one, parents are looking to the school system for their kids to go there, right? And some parents are working, and all of those kinds of things that are going on. It's not a decision that I take very lightly. In fact, it's, my wife, Sue, will tell you, gosh, I know you hate hurricanes. And I say, you're right, Sue, I hate hurricanes. It's like the worst thing ever for a school system. But let's talk about instructional hours. I don't know if anybody saw our neighbor to the north, and it's probably not right to say this, but they're having 2 makeup days as a result of decisions made. So always safety first, but then if schools can open, we should open them, right? And so that's kind of the way that looks. So right now, we do not need to make the day up that we've missed. I'm hopeful that we don't have very many more storms, but it kind of works that way. So even for board members, typically for me as superintendent, I'll give the board a call individually right after that decision's made in emergency management, and we've done all of those things, and then I'll inform people right after that. It's not like I'm going to sit on it like it's a secret. As soon as we know, we're going to let everybody else know. So I don't think this will be our first rodeo, but I just wanted to kind of give you that little glimpse into how it's done. One major factor as to whether we close or open is whether or not we have to open up shelters. So emergency shelters, typically the 4 schools that open, Keystone, Lake Asbury is our special needs shelter for medically complex folks. Orange Park High, Wilkinson Elementary School, they all open. So sometimes you have to close school because you're opening shelters, right? And so some of my colleagues across the state had to close school on Tuesday, like we were closed on Wednesday. And I said, "What are you closing for?" "Well, we had to close because shelters are opening." So there's more to it than just, hey, we want to close schools or open schools. I want to take a minute to kind of explain FAST testing. Okay, no, it's not a new diet or anything of that nature. It's actually the Florida Assessment of Student Thinking. So let's kind of give the big picture of assessment, how this works. You know that the previous year, the state developed a new set of standards. They're called the BEST standards. Anytime that you develop new standards, you have to develop a new assessment for those standards. Those of us that have been around a while, the previous assessment was called FSA. I'm going to test you now. Before FSA, it was FCAT, right? So you go through these processes across the state, and right now we're in that middle zone where this is the first time, last year's the first time we took them. So they haven't really developed a cut score. Like, what's the cut score going to be? Like, is it going to be the same? So all of that process is going on now. But what's different is students now do progress monitoring 3 times a year. In the beginning, it's kind of like a baseline. Then there's a mid-year, and then there's the final, the PM3. And what you would see happen is growth of students. So you can expect, and just a little tip, if a student's score is not where you wanted it to be for PM1, I always liken it this way. It's almost like you're given the final exam on day 1. Right? It's on all of the standards that you expect to know for the year, and you're taking the test in the first couple of weeks. I would expect that these scores would be lower, just knowing that. Then as the year goes on and those standards are taught, you could see that student growth goes across and accordingly. No matter how you slice the scores when it comes to cut scores and all of that, the first graphic that I put up previously, like where we rank, that doesn't change because the proficiency of one district or group is the same regardless of whether they raise the cut score up or down. It's going to be the same. So there's still a lot to be proud of, but I didn't know if people knew there's this whole thing that happens in a cottage industry that takes a full year to have validity and reliability studies done. Parents gain access to this on the school website. You go there, you can see how they did on PM1. There's a 6-digit code that goes with your child. You simply put it in there. There you go. You can look up how did your child do on their first assessment. Okay, again, keeping in mind it's the final exam on the first week, so don't go hard on your child to begin with. It's the start of the year. Okay, School of the Month. Thanks to our partners at Community First, School Pride is the theme for this month. You have until the 22nd to file it. It's right there on our school website. Upcoming events. You know what? I love September. So being a history teacher, September is the month for me. Founders Month is September. Now, this Monday is 9/11 Heroes Day, okay? I want everybody to realize this. I expect everyone to wear red, white, and blue on Monday. I'm going to put out a district-wide email. Just as a person that grew up in that area of the country, and also, in fact, my pin that I'm wearing today is a September 11th. It was given to me by my father. You know, as a country, if we don't celebrate what makes this country the greatest country that ever existed, known to mankind, then we're just not doing it right. I'm very proud of our civic scores and what we do, and we should never be bashful about who we are as a nation. So U.S. Constitution Day is the 17th, and then celebrate Freedom Week the 25th through 29th. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. All right, at this time, we're going to move into the discussion agenda. We have several special actions for human resources. So we'll start with special action A. Do I have a motion? Sorry.
I move approval.
Motion from Ms. Bola. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Ms. Clark. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Special action B. Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval.
I have a motion from Ms. Hanson. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Ms. Bola. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Special action C. Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval.
I have a motion from Ms. Bola. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Ms. Clark. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And special action D, do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Is that a
Yeah,
motion?
I'll
I have a motion from Ms. Skipper. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Ms. Bola. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, next on our agenda is item D5, and this is the previously C11 agenda item from the consent agenda, the 7 mindsets, life skills, and character education, and this was pulled by Ms. Hanson, so I will let her have the floor.
Do we need to make?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, let's have a motion and a second, and then discussion. Do I have a motion for this item?
I'll move approval.
I have a motion from Ms. Bola. Do I have a second?
I'll second. I'll second.
Okay, I have a second from Ms. Skipper. Go ahead, Ms. Hanson.
First of all, I can't tell you how disappointed I am that we sit in this grand boardroom and I ask if I can have a way to put something on the screen and we don't have the technology. Mr. Superintendent, I imagine we could get some kind of an iPad or something that could connect to the Wi-Fi so I could go to my email and I could show things on a large screen if I wanted to.
You can do PowerPoint.
I mean, honestly, I think it's something that we could be very inexpensive. And the reason I say that, for the people who attend, for board members who may or may not have seen programs that I've had experience with, or even if you want to discuss something and it's something you could bring to the board, we're all multiple learners, all right? So if you just hear someone droning on about their idea, sometimes it's often hard to get the full picture. Sometimes our attitudes get in the way, sometimes our beliefs get in the way. So what I really like to do is show some documentation and pictures and visuals that help make it easier for people who are not familiar with what I'm talking about. I believe, first off, at the workshop, I had some concerns about 7 mindsets. Let me just tell you what I told Mr. Brodsky is I'm not adamantly opposed against what Clay County is doing with 7 mindsets. But I want to assure you that 7 Mindsets is a social emotional learning program. And it is not mandated by Clay County to have every teacher do it. And it is used in some schools, but it is not used with fidelity across Clay County. On the other hand, something like Suite 360 is a mandate that we do, and it has fidelity through guidance counselors and other means and calendars to make sure we meet state mandates. So my focus is on 7 mindsets. I'll begin with telling you that this program is $183,000. And one thing in the beginning, when I first became a school board member, I would say, $183,000? Well, I realize now in school board member terms that $183,000 is almost like a drop in a hat. I don't mean to say it disrespectfully, but when you're dealing with over a $500 million budget, it seems like a small amount. But the reason I called this to discussion, in a time of uncertainty, when we are unaware of what a final budget may be, unaware of how legislation will affect our budget. We have a truthsayer over here who sits around her magic ball and tries to imagine how much money we will get. It is very stressful. She does a really good job, but in a time, I've had discussions this week with people from the district office, in a time where every idea I have to bring a raise to a master teacher is almost a big fat no. I say to appeal to the board that $183,000 is a start to try to figure out what we can do better when it comes to being fiscally conservative. I would not achieve, people say I pulled the resource from the beginning. It was supposed to only be used 3 hours a month by a teacher. But the resource itself was $619,000, a much bigger pot of money. This particular resource, 7 Mindsets, like I said, it has an impact of $183,000. And so I want to get to the chase on this particular topic, okay? Ethan in there, can we put, I sent him the website to put up. And he wrote me and I sent him the email, the website. For the resiliency tools. I'm going to try to do it this way. It's not going to take very long. So the district office was very gracious to give us all a copy of how they align the standards. What I'm here to tell you is we should never pay $183,000 for something that's free. I'm also here to tell you that resiliency standards, can be taught in an ELA class through a novel, talking about character development, asking high-order questions about how does the character compare to you? What could you have done different? As I was told at the workshop, resiliency standards are taught through civics and history, which is a perfect place because a lot of the resiliency standards have to do with patriotism and learning about the Constitution and the country and how to be a better citizen. Those are the standards, the resiliency standards. So as a resource, CPALMS is free. On a first glance, if you could scroll up for me. Keep going. Yeah, just keep. I want you to click, no, go down. This is very hard. I need to see. Could you go to that? Yeah, toolkit. All right, so we don't need to see the video. You just scroll down a little bit. All right, so this is the building resiliency piece that was designed by the state of Florida to help make sure our kids had tools to be successful in life. And it includes things like, if you can see up there, resiliency education, civic and character education, life skills education. It has other things, if you wanted to go in and look at what the resiliency standards are, I could have printed copies, but it's a 15 or 11-page document. It takes you all the way from kindergarten, learning how to recognize your feelings, the word sad, all the way through 12th grade, which is a much more complicated process that builds over time. So if you scroll down to the bottom, you're going to see these are the main criteria: mentorship and citizenship, critical thinking and problem solving. Let me get mine out so we don't have to keep scrolling around. Then we have character and we have personal responsibility. When you look at it from first sight, it doesn't look like a lot. But when you begin to click around, look at me trying to click around, I would like us to go into, hold one second. These are free lessons designed from K through 2, 3 to 5, 6 to 8, and 9 through 12. And if you were to click under 6 through 8 on Show Your Citizenship, if you could do that for me, please. Show Your Citizenship. There would be no duplication if the county just gave a plan to say, why don't you guys do this in 6th grade? Why don't you guys do this in 7th grade, this in 8th grade? It would be a simple thing maybe to come up with a focus, much like we do during Founders Week. We could do a lot of it then. So it starts out You have a opening video, scroll down a little bit. It tells you the standards it's aligned to, and especially in ELA, if you're teaching a novel, you can align these standards to that. It also says suggested tutorials. There are 3 different paths you can take as a teacher to bring yourself through this curricula. The resource collection, original student tutorials for social studies. Social studies teachers could teach it. It is a 30-minute, not very complicated lesson. It tells you how to do the lesson. And this goes all the way from kindergarten to 12th grade. Like I said, it is a free resource. I went through it today. I was really surprised when I started looking in there how much is developed for our teachers, and it gives them choices. And since it's not required by our, the resiliency standards are required to teach, it's not a difficult thing, but since 7 Mindsets is an additional piece, and I know it was brought up that we use it for PBIS, and for those of you that don't know, I believe level 1 is something we give to everyone. This can also be used for PBIS, for level 1, teaching kids what they need. If you could go back to the other screen real quick. I can't see what that is. Scroll down. So if you were to click in character, you can see the focus of the resiliency standards. Who says please and thank you? Great. Kindergarten through 2nd grade. 6 words of a self-portrait, memoir. The rest of the years, you learn about portraits and patriotism. You learn about famous citizens and from the past and history. You watch videos on these things. You can go to personal responsibility. They have some great tools in here. We all need trees, exploring the First Amendment. What I'm saying is, the county did nothing wrong with buying or wanting to use 7 Mindsets. But in a time where money falls so short in an uncertain time, there's absolutely no reason to spend $183,000 when we have a free resource.
Thank you, Ms. Hanson. Did anybody care to speak to that? Ms. Bolden?
I spoke to Ms. Fogarty today since this was just pulled this morning, and I didn't have a chance today to talk to too many people, but I did speak with a couple of high school principals and just tried to garner some more information about this, knowing that it is an expense, most definitely. For those of you who don't understand the resiliency side of this, Mrs. DeSantis set up a resiliency toolkit for us and basically is proposing this, and it has come through. There's a Rule 6A that talks about, for want of a better roundabout term, I'm going to say character ed. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, and Ms. Pickett, you might be able to help me on this, it's a 5-hour requirement in our high schools, if I'm not mistaken. And it is considered basically something that we teach on a weekly basis within this curriculum. And yes, CPALMS is used. It's my understanding that once you get into it, for instance, the K through 5 is just now being developed in CPALMS, and there's a limited number of lessons that are available. The 7 Mindsets, as you can see probably in some of the information, the 7 areas are everything is possible, passion first, we are connected, 100% accountable. You are 100% accountable for your actions. So when I'm on the playground with recess, let's say, and I'm talking to a child who has just kicked sand on somebody else, I can talk to them about being accountable for their actions, just using that as a generic idea. Attitude of gratitude, huge. Saying thank you, saying please, appreciating other people, live to give, and the time is now. And truly, not all of our schools use it. Many of our schools use it with fidelity. Many of our teachers, not everybody within each school uses it. And I said, well, really, how much do we actually use this? I mean, you know, how many lessons do we have? When I found that in the last year alone, we used 35,000 lessons from this program. Let me repeat that, 35,000 lessons. We only have 40,000 students, and that means multiple lessons for all of those students. I think this is money well spent. In our country, in our community, there's so much disregard for other people that's building, and we need to get back to that caring. We need to get back to that we are connected. And I think we have always said this as teachers, if we can have what our children have learned in the classroom go home and teach some of their parents even, I think it would make life a lot easier for all of us. So I am still in favor of this particular program after 35,000 lessons taught just in the last year.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bullough. Ms. Skipper?
I just want to say, I'd have to agree with Ms. Hanson. If we are limiting ourselves, if we're looking at a bigger picture actually, and we're limiting ourselves to one program to educate our students, then we have a bigger problem. And not only that, but I don't think we need to spend $183,000 to tell a child that, you know, it's not nice to kick sand, be kind. When it's provided by the state as a free tool, I mean, it's not like you're completely taking it away. And like we discussed at the workshop, Ms. Gilhausen, you made a good point that I'm actually taking as my own personal advice, is that you can teach a lot of this stuff through basic literacy of Winnie the Pooh, friendship and being kind. And so if we utilize other tools and get out of our box, I feel like, you know, $183,000 would be well spent elsewhere when we already have it here provided for us free. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Anything further? Ms. Clark?
Just that by next year, I just want to add to what Ms. Skipper said. By next year, this will be even more developed. They have big plans in store for it, and it is plenty of material for teachers to use. I'm sorry, Ms. Clark.
Oh, you're fine. No, I was going to say I spoke to Ms. Fogarty as well. And in fact, I think in November of 21, when this first came up, I spoke to her at that time as well. The good news is if you go online, you see one thing that can disturb you in some pieces. But I think Clay County is very select in what they use.
Yes.
So we're very cautious.
Right.
But at the same time, if we do have another program, if it is up and running, then maybe we should consider it. So, but that's the question, is it, do we know if it's totally?
Next year, it will be more developed. Right now, there are 2 lessons in the K through 5 curriculum.
Well, there's options within each lesson. There's different tutorials.
But 2 lessons.
Well, it's
So
K
once
through
you
2.
teach that one lesson and you do 3 or 4 options, that might be a couple of weeks worth of education, and then another. So it's
Well, part of the function of
this is
kindergarten
also
is teaching
used,
kids how to
yeah,
behave.
in the high schools.
We don't need.
I guess the other concern that I have is that when we don't have a program of this nature to supplement, and truly it is a supplement to the CPALMS program, because the CPALMS program isn't yet fully developed. So in the future, a year from now, when the CPALMS program is more fully developed, yes, then maybe we can say, you know what, we don't need this, we can save the money then. But my concern now is that, once again, we're taking a program, and I'm looking at that 5 hours of required instruction. And yeah, 5 hours, and it's not just, this is developed curriculum, lessons that are predetermined, already developed. The teacher doesn't have to spend the time developing it, and all teachers teach it. It's not just language arts teachers, it's not just math teachers, all teachers teach it in the high schools, it's my understanding. And then,
Can I just
Mike,
correct
let me-
something
let
you
me
said
finish.
that's not
Let me
Correct?
just finish my thought, just so I get the thought
Okay.
out. What my concern is that when we take a program away and we don't have something fully developed to replace it, then we're, once again, leaving the teachers, and granted, our teachers do a lot of good work. However, teachers are hesitant to go out into the computer, into the internet, and say, well, I can just pick up some programs from that, because those programs are not necessarily approved. One of the reasons that this program was selected, and it goes right back to Mrs. DeSantis's toolkit for resiliency. And she has this outlined, and the program literally meets. This particular program met the most guidelines within her toolkit. So it was one of those, this is a perfect opportunity that we can offer our teachers so they don't have to reinvent the wheel. And by gosh, I mean, if they have anything that comes from this and we decide, nope, we're not going to have it, it's like and I'm not trying to bring up Achieve as an example, but I'm going to. In Achieve, there were a lot of written things. It wasn't all on computer. It was here are articles. We're going to read these articles. We're going to annotate. We're going to, go into it. That same thing, if I have those papers, let's say from last year, I can't use them. I'm now breaking copyright laws. It's not something that you can just go back in and say, well, I'll just use the stuff that I had last year. Because if we discontinue this, we don't have that program that we can use from that point on. Whatever I said wrong.
First of all, 7 Mindsets is not required to teach.
Correct.
Second of
The
all,
5 hours is required. That's what I was referring to.
Excuse me,
Go ahead.
I
Sorry.
respected your wish. CPALMS does have fully developed lessons that teachers do not have to go and reinvent the wheel. It's not required to teach it. There are more than 2 lessons for K through 2. For instance, under mentorship and citizenship, there are 4 lessons. Under critical thinking and problem solving, which I hope, as a board, we hope, they're always doing critical thinking and problem solving. There are 6 lessons. There is a limited amount in character, but you know what? The younger elementary, one of the missions of younger elementary is to develop good character traits and responsibility with small children. That's probably why there's not as many lessons in there. So like I said, both have prepared lessons. It's not required anyway. And it'll be fully developed, and we would save $183,000.
Mr. Broski, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, just a couple things related to this. The board president doesn't recognize, but it actually approved this program at its July meeting as part of the mental health application that was put in. So it was part of that plan that was sent to the state already, because the intent was to fully use this program. Now, granted, Ms. Hanson's comment as well, anytime we could save money, we should save money, of course. But the experts that work within this field say that it's not fully developed yet. And so when I look at the fact that it's not fully developed, and also the board had in fact approved this at its July meeting as part of its allocation plan that was sent to the state, those are 2 things that kind of give me pause for concern.
Thank you, Mr. Broski. So my take on this, the school year is rolling, and this is a requirement, not the 7 Mindsets, but the state requirements are in existence. And this is what we have had professional development on. This is what we have planned on for this school year. So my ask of the board would be that we consider taking this up again with plenty of forethought. We know that the contract is annual, correct, Mr. Roski? And CPALMS should, if it's not currently, be developed by the next time that we would look at this contract again. But, and I was very clear in my comments during the workshop that my preference would be that this is embedded in our curriculum. And to your point, to not put something else on our teachers' plate that they have to do, another lesson plan that's separate from all the other lesson plans that they do every day. And I think that that's an endeavor that we can work towards at the district level with all of our curriculum experts on how we can delineate within our curriculum maps that we are in fact meeting the state requirements for those hours so that it is not an additional piece. But we don't currently have that work completed. So I don't want to remove a resource from teachers that makes it more accessible, doesn't take away time that they could be spending on developing their content lesson plans for what they are responsible to teach. To me, it's to be consistent, I would like to proceed forward with the plan that we have given, that this is what we're going to do. I don't like to change horses midstream without really good reason for it. And I think in this instance, there's nothing objectionable that we're using in this curriculum. Many schools find it incredibly useful. So I think it would be wise to give pause to it and reconsider it when it comes up for adoption, which would be, I'm assuming, next September. So that we have, and then our staff is prepared. They know that we're wanting to do something different. We don't want to spend this money again next year. So please take action so that by the time this contract comes up next year, you've had a year, you know that this is the direction we want to head in as a board. Let's make necessary adjustments so that everything can be well planned out and everybody feels well supported.
And then we can also follow up even earlier if our mental health program needs to be to the state by, what did you say, July?
Remember, it's after the budget's passed, they give us like 2
Well,
weeks.
yeah. So
They pass the budget, then they say, turn this in by the end of the month. That's why this was July.
whatever, okay. So I don't know how to do amendments to anything that we send to the state, and I know it's not fun. That's, I mean, that would give us time, though, for next year's
I
mental
just think
health
this
plan.
is something that needs to be planned for so that it's a seamless transition. I don't want anybody to feel like the carpet's being ripped out from underneath them needlessly when there's not a clear, objectionable reason to not approve this.
I have
Ms.
two-
Hanson?
I have
I'm
two
sorry,
que-
Ms. Skipper.
Sorry, I have two questions. One would be, can you not purchase part of the program with the mental health?
Yeah, I'm sure there's different purchasing options for this program or any other one.
Okay, and then secondly, how hard would it be to take a lesson plan that you already had and just apply different application? So instead of using, the 7 Mindsets curriculum, but you're still teaching character and you use one
So
of the
I'll
that's what I'm just saying.
make
you
a
just
comparison.
Redirect.
I'll make a comparison. So as nurses,
Mm-hmm.
think about care plans that we're responsible for or charting that we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
In teaching, when you're submitting lesson plans, you're documenting the standards that each of your lessons meets, right? So in order to tailor it to meet additional standards, that is additional work for that teacher to go back in and document how that was met. Because again, it's a requirement from the state, so we have to show that we've taught it. So for me, if that lesson plan for them is already done and we just take it away with no notice, I mean, I know for me as a teacher, I like to have as much done before my students even sit in that seat as I can. So to pull a resource from them and then they have to fill in the gaps, that's their planning time that we're asking them to use to replan something that they had already taken care of. Does that make sense?
And what was your first question about? Oh, you had said, I had asked Ms. Fogarty that, a similar question, not the exact same one, but about 7 Mindsets. And she indicated to me, and I shouldn't quote her directly but close, that there are other programs within this that we are not using, that we have not, I don't know. Yeah, we don't, there are a variety of different programs that you can purchase or that you can use, and we choose not to use certain programs. But this one was aligned with, as she had written in the papers that she gave us, with the Florida Resilience Education Standards. the University of South Florida is the one who's building up the CPOMS program. And they're still in the process of building, so.
Yeah, I'm
I
not,
like the-
I'm
I
not
like
opposed
waiting
to
a
a
year.
toolkit like
Yeah.
CPOMS, but ideally, the direction I would like to see us head is really embedding it in the curriculum so that, those standards are met through relevant content and not through something that's outside of what we're already teaching. We're not taking 30 minutes out of ELA instruction. We're not taking 30 minutes out of history or science or math or whatever. Something is being sacrificed in order to show that lesson, right? So I would just prefer that we find a way to make sure that it's embedded and the checklist is, it's checked off that way.
So if we as a board consent to that and maybe,
And say that's the direction we want to head next year.
right, and say
Mhm.
that's the direction we want to head next year, isn't that something that we should be starting
Yes.
possibly this year?
Yes, and I think that that's kind of my point here. Can we pass this with the stipulation to the district that we would like to move in a different direction next year? And, with consensus, if you want to move in a direction of we want to use CPOMS next year, or maybe we want to have the option to use CPOMS, but we'd rather it be embedded in the curriculum.
And I think that's what I wanted to stress, that we don't wait until next September.
Right.
That we address the sooner, especially CPOMS is free.
Right.
But I have to say, I trust Laura Fogarty.
Mhm.
And so I'm willing to go with the 7 mindsets for this time.
Okay.
If you have to get it approved, like you said, we already approved it in June, we can't wait till September, because you would have to have that part settled to give it to the state of Florida, correct?
Mhm.
If I could make the recommendation to the board that we put this on to a board workshop so that further discussion can occur.
I think that's
In
great.
the spring?
I think earlier than
Like
that.
even earlier than
Yeah,
that.
I think we
So
should
that-
have a.
So that good direction's given so that they can start working in that direction way ahead of time and not wait until the summertime to get there.
And I think a presentation from our climate and culture department would be in order so that we understand what objectives they're trying to meet and how they're using the content to do it, and what would it look like if we did it differently.
And if we could, please include some of the examples from the different schools and how they fit this time into their daily,
Yeah,
their day.
absolutely.
Because it's my understanding that even though these individuals teach this particular time, it doesn't infringe on any language arts, math, or any other time. It sort of
Well, that time's coming from
evens out
somewhere.
the lunch time or something. I didn't get into the weeds. I was like, is this extra or whatever?
Can we
Yeah.
just, first of all, Ms. Gilhausen, thank you for your very thought-out reply to my request. I really appreciate when school boards can have great conversation. Your ideas are great, and everyone had valid input. Mr. Broski, can a principal force teachers to do this? There's many people that think it's required and they have to do it.
I need an example of that.
Well, they have to teach one of the standards a week, for instance. They have to teach from the 7 mindsets.
Each school has the ability as a school team to make those kinds of decisions. And if the school team has decided that this is the direction that they're going in, then it would make sense that everybody would be a part of that team.
I mean, I guess the junior high is more like my thinking, because they are mandated to do the 360 training. It usually starts like in January. So on top of that, I guess trying to figure out if it's a requirement for them to do this as well.
Are you asking if there's training for
Yeah,
7
To
mindsets?
teach it, yeah.
I'd be glad to look into that.
That would be good information for our workshop. Just to know what's being asked exactly of our teachers. I think that speaks to what Ms. Skipper was asking too. Like, how much does this affect a teacher's ability to lesson plan, and how much time is it taking? I think those are all very valid questions. So before we make a big change, I'd like to have the answers to those questions and then make a well thought out decision going forward. All right, so are we ready to vote?
Yep.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, now we are on to school board attorney remarks. Mr. Blocker, did you have anything?
Oh, thank you. Just want to thank you all again for reaching out during the month with questions and so forth. We'll continue to try to field those, make sure the processes are moving forward. Anything that y'all feel that needs to be brought to our attention as far as policies, please continue to bring that to our attention. We'll work on those. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blocker. School board member remarks. Who would like to begin? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Ms. Bola?
Oops. Mr. Blocker, thank you for your service to our country as well, and particularly to our state. I know you weren't with us at the workshop because of your service, so thank you. Couple of things that we've been involved with, or that I was involved with the last couple of weeks that were like amazing. First of all, school year started, Tools for Schools. The Education Foundation knocked it out of the park again, and I cannot thank Arbor Automotive enough. I think I thank them every single solitary meeting because of their service to our schools. But there were so many volunteers. Ms. Hanson and I were there. I'm not sure if you guys were able to stop in, but even just stopping in and seeing the volunteers step up to help teachers get free materials for their classrooms, huge. College night. We had a college and career night this past week, and I was in a line to get into the fairgrounds, and I felt like I was going to the county fair. It was packed, and yes, I apologize for any inconvenience that people had while they were driving in, but what an awesome problem to have. And to see all of the colleges with lines and the career opportunities that students had and the businesses that were there and the military, I mean, everybody. And families were walking out with information and they were asking questions of people standing around and just getting all of the information they possibly could for their kids. It was amazing. So well done to everyone who was involved with that. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to go to the FSBA meeting for the Crown region, and phenomenal opportunity. I mean, it was at Union, I have to get it right, Union County, Lake Butler. Union County has a total of 3 schools. They just added another one, so they think they're up to 4 schools. I'm not certain what kind of, they were congratulating them on a new school, and so they counted it as 4. I'm not sure what it was. We were right across from the Lake Butler High School, which nice size school, but obviously a small county. But a number of counties from the region were represented. And one of the ideas that I came home with, I thought could apply to us if we're interested. We talk about reviewing our policies. And in our policies, it says that we're supposed to review them every year, annually. We all know that we don't do that as effectively as we should. And I'm hoping maybe at the next workshop that we can talk about setting a schedule for policy review. I mentioned this to Mr. Blocker, and he said, hey, let's try it. And they do it in a way that it's not an every month, it's not every workshop we're going to pick up a policy. It's a concerted effort to say, okay, during these 6 months, we're going to look at these policies, and we sort of do it as an even and odd month and year. So over a 2-year period, we would have the opportunity to put eyes on every one of our policies. There are going to be a lot of policies that we don't need to touch because they've been updated or they've been approved or recently or whatever. I know we're going through job description changes and things, but this would be an opportunity for us to sort of set a schedule. And if you're interested in that, I would ask that we add that to the agenda for the next workshop. Just, I don't know if you guys would be interested.
I agree.
In that or not, but write it down. Let's get it started, sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think we had talked about, we were waiting for our new representation to come on board before we started reviewing policy. So I think that it is time.
Timeliness, everything. As always, I have to mention the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. Any support of that particular program is welcome. We're trying to add another zip code. Unfortunately, we don't have the finances yet to do that, but we have something like 1,400 children receiving books now. So we're paying for a lot of books, but it sure is worth it. And they are very, very happy to get them. Had the opportunity to tour Keystone Heights cafeteria. Whoa. I can't wait for the ribbon cutting in December because it is going to be awesome. Operations are doing a phenomenal job there. They were in the process, also, we got to go into the old cafeteria that is now becoming the media center. And it's like watching just this ultimate change going on that I mean, it's going to be beautiful, beautiful. And the kids were excited, totally excited about their new classrooms. I think that those are the only things that I wanted, but my last thing is first day of school. Obviously, we all experience that. On the first day of school, I enjoy going to the bus barn and thanking the bus drivers, because I think that's the first thing that kids see, is the bus driver opening up their door. And there were bus drivers there who were facing medical issues, bus drivers who had lost family members. I mean, it was amazing, the people that showed up, because it was the first day of school. And shortly thereafter, on August 17th, I read a letter to the editor, and Mr. Neal from Fleming Island basically said, you know what? It would do well to recognize and give thanks to all the people in Clay Public Schools. They could use the thank you. And in case you missed the article, here's the good news about our students' performance. And then it went into all of our rankings and things that we had. Number 1 in civics, while high school American history, they were number 4. That's a lot of top 10 rankings. And as radio commentator Paul Harvey used to say, now you know the rest of the story. So I share this at the bus barn, and I just want to share it with all of our teachers, all of our staff members, everybody who works in the Clay County District School System. Thank you for all that you do, because we started the new year off right, and it is going to be a great year. And thank you for all that you do and for caring so much about our children. It is greatly, greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Ms. Bola. Ms. Skipper?
Turn my mic on. August was a busy month, especially in our school system and for me as a mom. So I've had my hands full. But I did make it out to Wilkinson Junior High, did a little tour out there and spoke to a couple of our support staff. I just want to say thank you to all of you support staff, and thank you to those who have endured the heat of our coming back to school and having ACs down and not running, and being patient with our maintenance department fixing those, because I know after all this baby weight, I don't like to be hot. So I know sitting there for 8 hours, even in the heat cooking, it's even hotter back there. So I just want to thank you guys for putting a smile on your face and working through it. My dad was an AC guy, so I know all too well what it's like to, I feel their pain sometimes. But anyways, I wanted to bring to the board, I know we just got done talking about policy and maybe revisiting some things, but as part of the committee that I'm with Tobacco-Free Clay, I know that our policy has not been updated in quite some time, like a very, very long time. Speaking with those individuals and community partners, and I brought a policy that I hope will be sent out to all of you so you can have it before, if we choose to, as a board, put this on our next workshop. But, and then maybe even discuss a little further. I know I've talked to Mr. Broski about this, and even Chief Wagner, about other programs that we can implement with teaching, being tobacco-free and drug prevention and all of that. So I feel like maybe we could discuss some of those, bring maybe some ideas. I know I have some. And I know we actively have some currently within our schools, but not every school utilizes them. And I know some are really good programs that are not on a computer where you're just clicking through, checking a box. It's very interactive. So maybe thinking about that. Another concern I have is possibly reviewing, looking at, or creating a visitor policy. There's been some questions and concerns throughout, actually for several months now, but I want to just make sure that we're compliant with state law, we're in best practice, and then if there is room for improvement, that we meet that. So I want to make sure that maybe we either look at that. I don't know if that's something that we need to immediately do as far as board policy.
Are you referring to like visitors, like what happens when they walk into the front office kind of thing?
Just like if a variety of things. Don't know how to verbalize this.
We can certainly discuss it at the
Okay.
workshop if the board would like
Ms.
to.
Skipper, like the policy where at some schools, parents can come eat lunch, and maybe other schools, they can't come and eat lunch with their kids in the outside courtyards, stuff like
Yeah,
that? Visitation?
Yes, visitation, and then possible, I guess we can go in detail then, when I can find my words that are not so direct, I should say. And then lastly, I want to discuss, we all had, well, we spoke about it this evening, so it's not new news to anybody, but we had an incident that resulted in a disciplinary action, and that incident made me want to look further at maybe I want to make sure that we learn from our mistakes and that everything that we do from the top down is in place. Maybe reviewing policy, making sure that we're in full accountability for our actions. And just making sure that we learn from things. As a nurse, I can tell you that I worked for a very prestigious hospital, and if a mistake was ever made, the administration would come behind them and say, where did we as an admin fail that you couldn't do your job? We were still held accountable and responsible, but where did we fail? Where did you make sure you scan your med, the right patient, the right time, the right medication, all of these things. So I just want to make sure that we are doing what's right. I have 2 small children, and I know there are a lot of us that have kids, but it hits close to home. I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I just, as a mama, I don't know. And I want to make sure that we have learned from this and that we make sure everything that we can possibly do is in check from the top down, and do better. So with that being said, I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Skipper. Ms. Clark?
Excuse me, Madam Chair, just through the chair, can we just get board consensus on these? matters?
Absolutely. So as a board, are we agreeable that we want to look at a policy regarding, what were the things you listed? Okay, visitors at schools. Okay, so we want to look at, I don't even know if we have a current policy
We do
about
not.
visitors at schools.
We do not.
We don't, yeah. So do we want to, as a board, consider a policy for
There's actually a
visitors at
lot of
schools?
new additions to laws about parental rights and parental policies, and it would not hurt us to take a look at the guidance from the law.
The guidance from the state, and then I would also want to know what other districts are doing.
Yes.
Personally. So Mr. Blocker, if you'll look at that. And then tobacco, drug-free and tobacco. So we do have a policy about that. So maybe let's look at our current policy,
Right.
bring it to the next workshop. So, and then we can direct Mr. Blocker from there what we want to see done differently with the current policy. Okay. And then your third was
It was just making sure that whether we need to look at other policies, create policies, whatever we need to do to make sure that
dismissal, I think, is a little more nuanced per school and per.
right, but I'm just saying
yeah.
from every aspect of every angle from the top down, I want to make sure, do we need another policy? Do we need something needs to change? I want to make sure that we're not missing anything. Is there something that we need to do to make sure this never, ever happens?
Do we do
again?
that by tackling one policy at a time, Ms. Skipper? Is that?
Well, that's what I'm saying, as far as like the investigation and
So I can,
things.
if I could,
Mr. Bresky.
let me, first of all, nobody wants anything like that to happen to any child, any family, and that goes without saying. When that happens, the way that you handle that is you go ahead, you do an investigation, you hold everyone accountable. And if you'd notice, the folks accountable, everyone was held accountable. After that, it's a common practice to do an after action, like what exactly happened to ensure that doesn't occur. One of the challenges with policy, and I think the board attorney would probably agree, is like the policy can't be so strict because every campus is different physically, the makeup of the campus, the way the roads come into the campus for dismissal. So I can assure you two things. One, that very thing that you talked about, like, do you look at this after that has occurred? Okay, and will continue to occur for every campus, not just the one campus. And so when it comes to discipline, just having been in HR for 5 years and having disciplined many people over the course of my time, we take it seriously within the law, within past practice, and deal with it fairly, with due process in mind for the employees, but also sternly. I feel like we've done that. While I wish the event never occurred, I feel like the way that it was handled is spot on.
So I guess if the board were to consider a policy on that particular issue, I think it would more be about the process and procedure for setting up a dismissal plan. Who is ultimately responsible for that plan? And maybe that those plans need to be submitted to our Office of Safety and Security or our Office of.
Mr. Browski, speaking of AAR's after action reports, I think it would be probably in our interest if we could do a debriefing about what went wrong, what you guys are doing about it, the different ways you made changes to procedures, starting at the top down, the idea of looking at individual schools and how different they are. Because I believe you guys had all that conversation. It might just help enlighten us if we knew what it was that you identified and how you're fixing it, so.
And it would give me a
Honestly, I feel like that could be an email of, here's what went wrong and here's how we addressed it.
I think it just understanding the day-to-day operational will help understand perspective from a board member, what we should do. Because I know sometimes we may not always think about A, B, and C when we've already thought about, D, E, and F. There's different perspectives. So I'm the type of person that I need to know the bigger picture to be able to understand things. So an email would be great.
Yeah, I think just some information about here were the things that were missed and here is how it's been corrected and this is the action plan moving forward. So pause on a policy for now on that, I think.
Right, and I guess that's what I'm kind of like asking is, do we need to create a policy so I guess we would need a debrief to know, okay, is there a policy that we see that we can create, or is it necessary to do it or edit,
And I will tell you this.
Redo one.
I got good advice as a new board member. You want to put as little in policy as you have to. So, and especially when it comes to making they warn you about making policy regarding one issue. Because it may have gone down one way at one school, but then you make a policy. I mean, think about the state statutes that get made in regard, like at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, how many things have come out of that one issue that we see could have been done differently, could have been done better, because it was a knee-jerk reaction to an emotional, awful thing that happened, right? So I want to be careful that we don't legislate in that way.
Right.
So
That's why
I think having
we need
information is probably more appropriate.
further, a debrief
Mhm.
to understand, so that, I'm just talking in general. Do we need to go that direction? Do we not need to go that direction? You know, as top down, we need to make sure that,
Well, because that is a day-to-day operation, dismissal is a day-to-day operation.
Right.
Ultimate responsibility lies with the superintendent.
And-
So then we as a board can ask, okay, Mr. Superintendent, tell us what happened and what you've done to address it.
Right, which is kind of what I'm
Right.
asking. So-
Speaking of the superintendent, I worked at 8 schools. Demographics, cultures, all very, very different. Priorities, I would tell you, are different at every school. Basically, what I would like the superintendent to make sure of is that every school now has a very Loctite dismissal procedure, because I do believe that's in the hands of the superintendent. And then he could maybe email us about how they handled that and how it's not going to happen anymore. That'd be great, right?
Yeah. All right. So, Mr. Blocker, I think all we're focused on is the tobacco policy, and see if other districts around the state have a school visitation policy.
Understood. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Clark?
I'll keep it short and sweet, I promise. I want to thank Mr. Blocker. He's put up with us this first month, and we appreciate it. We've got a lot on his plate, and, you know, we have discussed reviewing our policies, and I agree, there's a lot that we don't need to make, because it puts us, I mean, who would have thought we'd have to have a bathroom policy? I'm sorry. Just anyway, but it's amazing. I know we had talked about one of our first priorities is the book procedures. So that is going to be addressed. Wanted everybody to know that. That's at the top of our list. And there are a lot of things that were talked about tonight that we are addressing. So, but it's amazing how many times safety came up. And I can guarantee you that is, you know, education is there, definitely, but safety is number one. So, and we hear everybody. So, thank you.
Ms. Hanson?
I was going to be long-winded, but I'm going to be half. I'm going to be half. I have a few things I'd like to see if we could get some kind of consensus about placing them on the workshop. First thing, this is not really for consensus, but Mr. Broski, I remember you took a note at the workshop about seeing if we had a way to add on some kind of Lexile tester to get Lexile levels for particularly our younger kids. That was the biggest complaint about the decision of getting ready to achieve, was they would like to know Lexile levels. And so maybe one of the programs we offer, we can add that on, a Lexile tester.
It was my understanding with that Lexile levels really don't go in line with the current direction our instructional department is moving in with.
We usually go on
literacy.
Yeah, I can just tell you if a kid cannot read, the Lexile's low, and if they're tearing through hard books, the Lexile's high. But fast testing will give them, most teachers, everything they need to know about every single child. Next, I was wondering if we could get consensus. I would like to put Mr. Bittner's contract, buying out his contract, have discussion about that at the next workshop.
Okay, we can discuss that.
Can we do that? Do we need to get a consensus?
Yes, ma'am. Through the Madam Chair, if we could get consensus.
So our board policy is that any board member can add an item to the agenda through requesting through the chair and the superintendent. So she's requested it, so we can add that on as her item.
And I can do that later. It's getting kind of late. So I would like to have if we could have a short conversation. Ms. Bola brought it up again the other day. I know I brought it up about 12 times about getting some actual feedback from teachers and support staff about surveying them and about what changes they would like to make. And whether I want to believe it or not, sometimes when we send out surveys, the culture is not to be truthful because you don't want your principal to look bad, you don't want your colleagues to look bad, you're afraid they're spying on you. I'm just telling you what I've heard over the last 20 years about. So maybe we could have a conversation about hiring an external company to do a climate culture survey, particularly focused on teacher retention and what they would like to see us do.
Mr. Superintendent, don't we normally do an annual?
We do. We do an annual survey, and in the past, we've had a third-party company come and do that. I'm not opposed to looking at that, but it'll be far more costly than your the item from today. So it's kind of like, okay, I'm not opposed to hiring a company to do it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's just we already have a survey that we're doing for free in the district.
I mean, I understand what
The
you're saying.
survey we do
but-
for free is kind of, to be honest, if you look at the questions, it's a little restrictive.
Well, I mean, the questions, we determine the questions, correct? So if the board had input on the questions, I'm sure that we could give that input to the superintendent. If there were questions you want added, things that you think shouldn't be on there. And then
I
my
have
understanding.
a bunch of reasons why I thought it was a good idea, but I didn't think we wanted to go into all that tonight. So maybe it could move it to,
Yeah, we could talk about it at our workshop
yeah.
or at the next meeting, whichever you prefer.
So my last thing, I had to write it out. And it has, a friend unknowingly reminded me that humility keeps us grounded. We cannot grow without it. After sitting through last week's workshop, I left angry. I'm usually not a very angry person. I don't take anything personal for the most part. But I had to sit and I had to reflect on what was bothering me so bad. Every time I leave a workshop, I feel like something's bothering me. One of the presentations lasted 1 hour and 12 minutes. I feel like we haven't talked to each other 1 hour and 12 minutes in the last 5 months combined. There was a lot of terms thrown around like misinformation, misconception, misperception. They were thrown at us like people throw candy out of a parade to little kids. It was one after another, and it went on for a very, very long time. Well, I believe that I can say this on behalf of the board, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, that our thought processes and carefully planned responses are not based on nor guided by assumptions and misconception. I listened to the conversation tonight, and people had well thought out ideas, and you think about what you're going to say. Placating, having those kind of meetings with zero board conversation directs the board from its real mission. It's not acceptable. The workshop has an allotted block of time that the district fills almost to its complete brim for the last 6 months without having or making time for board members to get after the priority items on the agenda and have conversation, deep conversation about what we were elected for, our constituents, why we were elected. The people who elected me are who I serve. We have had very little time.
Who is limiting your time? You can speak as much as you would like to speak at a workshop. I may not have anything to
I can
add,
say when we had to do lawyer interviews, our board comments were cut off. The last time it went so long, we had this other meeting we had to do after. There was no board conversation. If you go back, I rewatched 4 workshops. At one of the meetings, I asked to shorten the agenda and presentations from the county office. We could present questions, we could talk to each other. This conversation we had tonight was an excellent conversation about 7 mindsets. That conversation should be held with notification at a workshop. It honestly should be held in preparation at a workshop. In addition, if we do not, so I guess here it is. If you want, I agree with the policy workshop, but the first priority for me, and tonight is another example, the first time I stepped into Roger Daly's office was March of 2022. I was a candidate. I had just quit teaching. And I walked in there with 12 of the most disgusting books I ever laid eyes on. That was 1 year and 6 months ago. And to this day, we are having the same conversations, hearing the same people say the same things over and over again. Our policy, if you listen to comments, if you listen to what teachers say, teachers upset, people not upset, parents directing other parents, this is a topic that's going to need a concerted effort. That effort cannot be done at a workshop. So I'd like to call for a special workshop where the board can discuss their priorities when it comes to this, because really a second workshop needs to be held with the community. They had a successful meeting at the county coming up with community standards. That type of format, inviting all kinds of diverse people to figure out what we need to do. But what I can tell you is the plan we have is a disaster. I have sat here for 4 months listening to how bad it's received and the advantages and disadvantages that people are doing, and how, I mean, at one point people were comparing us to Nazis and book burners. We have got to do something about this library media policy, this book problem that we have. And it cannot be done at a workshop. So I would like to make sure that we have a special workshop where we spend that 2.5 hours trying to figure out the board's direction that we would like to go with the library media policy. The first 4 pages are actually great. It talks about what librarians need to do. Some of it goes into buying, but it really is a mess right now. Some books get reported to the state that were removed. The new list came out. There's people up in uproars about that. I do not know how there was mishaps at our new school with books being put on the shelf, but I was brought aware that we actually did not do the 100% perfection job on putting new books on our shelves. These are the kind of things that we can take care of with a Loctite policy. We can't make everybody happy, but we need to really get that one done, unless we just want to sit here and listen to it for the rest of our lives.
No, Ms. Hanson, I think we made it very clear at our last meeting that we want a policy as soon as possible. And I've spoken with Mr. Blocker about it. I know other board members have as well. And my expectation, based on that conversation, is that we will have a policy to consider.
When are we gonna?
At the end of this month. So it would be in time to put it on the October regular board meeting agenda to vote on.
So where's the input coming from?
So the
How are we
attorney,
developing the policy? Because the county did develop the last policy, and it was presented on June 30th of 2022
right,
on the deadline.
Right.
So when and who is invited to help develop the policy? I'm concerned about the community and the perceptions and expectations that they have, to include our teachers.
well, so Mr. Daly had that meeting that you're talking about, where he invited the community in to develop community standards. And so what I understood at our last meeting was that we wanted a policy that included criteria. So we can look at the policy in its entirety as it sits and make revisions and edits at that time.
So they create it, we look at it? Is that what we're saying?
Yes. Sure, Ms. Bola.
Instead of saying create it and look at it,
The
they
policy
can
already
provide,
exists.
they can provide a basic policy outline, if you want to use an outline sort of idea. I mean, we're hearing some of the same comments. I agree with you. At every
My ideas
meeting.
don't match the
And-
policy right now.
And what we need to do is now that we've had experience with this as well, we can look at that. Granted, whatever is brought to us, we can pick it apart if we want to.
But are we saying we don't want to have a meeting ahead of time to talk about our priorities with that? Is that what we're saying? We don't want to meet as a board and talk about
No, that's not
the
what we're
library
saying.
media?
I think
That's not what we're saying, yeah.
I think
You're saying,
so the policy exists, right? We have a policy.
mm-hmm.
We as a board asked Mr. Blocker at our last board meeting to add the community standards portion to the current policy and bring that as a proposal to the board for a policy. So the plan is to have that for consideration at the workshop that happens at the end of this month.
I mean,
My suggestion would be that instead of having that policy be part of the agenda review, that maybe instead we have an agenda review workshop that morning, and then we have a policy workshop that afternoon, and we break for lunch in the middle and make a full day of it.
See, I have a real concern because our policy addresses pornography. At one of the school board meetings, I specifically brought in books that address the other two parts of the law. That is the part we're going to have trouble with because we have to figure out, does a Jeffrey Dahmer book belong on the shelves?
Which is why I think we need community standards. We need to consider what our community has said, and then I think we need to have a discussion as a board, and I think we need to have legal advice as to what is sound and what will hold up legally in a district policy.
She's saying bring your
No,
gutted
it
policy
just seems like if we're not
to the
collaborating,
workshop.
that's like 5 people bringing all kinds of different ideas, and it's just like it's
Well,
not.
that's what she's saying, the special meeting would be after our workshop.
It would
So
be
you
a
could
separate
do that.
workshop in and of itself, just to talk about this policy. Does that make sense?
Madam Chair, if I can just weigh in, I think one of the, if I could be recognized, I
Yes.
think one of the challenges is there is an existing policy that y'all have. Clearly, the board is, wants some changes to that. So Mr. Daly and the superintendent and I have sat down, we've gone over some of the community standards. There were some meetings with different community leaders. My recommendation would be, if I may, would be let us take our current policy, let us make some recommendations with a full understanding this is all preliminary. This is purely for, because we need board input. It's difficult for me to craft a policy without board input. So this is an opportunity for us to present maybe a first look in collaboration with your staff, because your staff actually conducted these meetings. I was not present, so I'll have to work with them to fine tune the language. Then I think that's an opportunity for each of the board members to provide further direction.
Correct.
For us to craft a ready policy, we do need some board input. So I think that will be an opportunity, but we need to bring something to y'all so we can get that we need a starting point.
Right, exactly.
So I will work with staff. We will, and we've already started that process. We'll kind of craft a few. We'll take your current policy and we'll maybe some additions and modifications, and that's really where we will be looking from the board, from each of you, to understand, what your inputs are. Then we'll come back and we'll vet that with Florida law and make sure that we're capturing what the standards are. The standards here, the community standards may be different here than in Miami or Jacksonville or one of the others. So I completely understand where you're going. Warm our hands in. I'll make sure that we try to bring a good starting point so we can start somewhere. Because right now it's hard for me to create a policy because I haven't heard all the inputs, but we can start with your staff, what they've worked on.
So I love collaboration. Can I get some clarification, Mr. Blocker, on informal meetings? So let me get this. If I want to invite the community to come talk to me while you guys are developing the standards so I can get an idea, am I allowed to do that by myself?
Yes, ma'am. Through the chair, yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Okay.
You can have a community meeting.
So if another board member wants to attend to talk with community members, then can you clarify to the best of your ability how I could do that?
Yes, ma'am. And just to clarify and make sure I'm understanding through the chair, your question is if you have a community meeting, let's say a town hall or forum,
Yeah.
if another board member is present, are there procedures?
Or would like to attend, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So that would be covered under Florida Sunshine Law, which has 3 requirements. One, you have to have public notice, and it has to be done in really a timely manner, 7 to 10 days to allow enough time for publication. It would need to be held in a public environment, so the public, if they wish to attend, and you would have to have some type of recording or a documentation of the minutes of those meetings. This is commonly done in government. It's very common for one board member to invite other board members to come to make sure the protections of the sunshine are in place. So we'd want to have those 3 elements. You don't want to have a public notice. So the notice, would go if and I would work with your staff to make sure that the legal notices, so the staff and the superintendent and his staff would work on the notice and the arrangements or whatever, the scheduling. So we'd make sure that notice went out and that it was in a public, it can't be in a closet or something like that. It has to be where the public can show up and participate. And we'd have to, make sure that there's some way of recording that and documenting that. So, if that's your wish, and we would work with the superintendent and his staff.
It will be my wish. We're a public body, and I believe we need to have public input to include our teachers. Yes.
So my only concern is that we have a school board meeting policy in our board policies. And I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it says that you have to have a quorum of board members in order to have a meeting. So that would require that 3 be in attendance.
That's something we can, if I understood the question correctly, for the board to collectively, y'all have your own specific rules. So we started with Florida Sunshine
Correct,
Law,
right.
and there are procedural outlines in Florida statute. Y'all as a board and your policies follow Robert's Rules of Order. So when the board collectively comes together, there has to be a quorum. I believe, if I understand the question correctly, and I may not, so please correct me, I believe Board Member Hanson was discussing if she had a public meeting and other board members attended, would there be any requirement? That would not be a board meeting, that would be a board member meeting.
Okay.
So I think that would be the distinction, if I understood the question correctly.
No, you understand. There's a lot of board members across the state that are doing this informally. Yeah.
So that would be a board member meeting, not a school board meeting.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is a very important distinction. We need to make sure we're clear on that. So individual board members cannot call a board meeting. The superintendent and the board chair are the only ones
Nor do
allowed.
I want another board meeting.
Understood.
Informal.
But individual board members can have
Yeah.
a forum. They can go out in the community and do that. The danger is if another board member shows up, it triggers sunshine. So in an abundance of caution, two of y'all could meet in the conference room, and as long as it's noticed.
So when I guess my question is, when it's noticed, it is not noticed as a school board meeting.
That's correct.
Right.
It's noticed as.
As a sunshine meeting, as a potential sunshine meeting where other board members may be in attendance.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So that, and I'm sorry for the
And
lack
if
of
one does
clarity.
show up, I can kick them out, right? If
That-
it's not meant to be, yeah.
That's correct. Now, y'all have some unique procedural, so I want to review and just make sure. I have not looked at this issue specifically before tonight. So as an example, y'all have some specific procedures that what you're allowed to have that are sometimes different from other school districts. So
And my concern is not to keep you from having a meeting, Ms. Hanson, at all. I just want to make sure that our policies support you. Because if something is discussed or if there's ever a challenge, sometimes those town hall meetings are emotionally charged, right? You may be talking about things that are touchy. So I just want to make sure that she's protected, the district's protected, and we've advertised everything appropriately, that's all. And we don't want to be found in violation of our own policy. So if we need to adjust the policy, we adjust the policy.
absolutely, if I may through the chair, if I can, Board Member Hanson, if I can get with you and understand what you're looking for, I can work with Mr. Brodsky and his staff, because his staff would do the notice. We'd review it in our legal department, and then we'll kind of make sure we're not askew of any other policies. But I understand what you're trying to
You
do.
had it perfectly. You understand, yeah.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Mr. Blocker. Was there anything further from the board? All right, then I'm going to call this meeting adjourned.